Det er mange som synes at vi er på seksualisert.
Har dere vært i sånn Pride-parade før da? Har dere sett det eller vært med på det før? Kan ikke det være bra? Jeg tror kan det ikke være litt kult da? Tenk du får litt dobbelt så mye mamma-hos. Liker du Olav?
Ja, han var på samme barnehage.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Longhouse. This one is titled the special overview or the special history, it's a special on the history of LGBTQ movement and organizations in Norway.
Yeah.
Now it's called a special, but I'd like to say that I'm probably going to remove that because we aim for every Longhouse episode to be very special. As always, I have Ludwig Path with me here, who's going to provide the bulk of the information and the deep dive here. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be back. So I've wanted to do this episode for quite a while. I think when we started it out and we were just spitballing ideas, this was one of the ones that I
Correct.
that I wanted to do, and I've had the chance now to read a couple of books, watch some documentaries, and read up on some material to kind of present a bit more of a coherent look at the Norwegian kind of LGBTQ lobby and how it affects policy in a bit more of an accurate way than I think you're going to see a lot of these Norwegian Con Inc. types or these sensible centrist types do.
It's going to be a little bit of a how did we get here?
Oh, most certainly.
We're probably not going to be using the acronym all the time, Nordanon.
Feedback.
But we just want to get it out of the way at the start, and for the sake of YouTube, I'm gonna do a little spiel here that obviously this is purely an educational look into the organization and the history of the LGBTQ movement, and we're not targeting any individuals specifically here. As Ludwig said, it'd be nice if I could be monetized before I got taken down.
Yep. No, I agree. This is purely educational, and we're just trying to educate all of these bigots on the Norwegian proud gay tradition.
Right. Because every one of you in the chat, as I've seen so far, have had some very
walk away with a more
views.
positive, enlightened view on the Norwegian gay history. I'm just going to say that now, and then of course I mean the GAE.
Right?
No, I don't mean that. I actually mean gay. Yeah.
I will also add that I'm having some lingering after effects from the coof. So if I'm muting myself a bit often, I'm probably coughing or doing something similar. So you'll all have to bear with me. Luckily, Ludwig has stepped up to look into this history for us. Anything else we want to go over before we start? Well, I suppose if you watch this and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. That helps a lot. Like the video, leave a comment if you feel like you have something to add. Please feel free to post any questions in the chat. I will mark them, and then we can answer them either at the end or during a break or something like that. And with that being said, we should probably just get into it. I think we've been going for about 5 minutes now, so people have had time to get into the show.
Okay. Do you have the presentation?
Yes, I'll bring it up.
So there we go. It's a bit of an ugly presentation, but I assure you the content is good. So
we're starting at the bottom here.
Yeah, we're starting at the bottom. I mean, this is the feeling we all have, right? I mean, how do we get to this point? Like, this is from say Tromsø Domkirke in 2021. So we have then Rune Nilsen acting as his superhero alter ego, Lady Di. So then Rune Nilsen is sort of a drag artist. He's not Christian. Does not have any connection to the church. And I'm sorry, I don't know the name of this pastor, and I didn't want to resubscribe to Vårt Land or one of these Christian newspapers, because this is where I get a lot of these articles, and where I see a lot of this stuff. I'm reading Vårt Land, and they're one of the biggest welfare queens among the Norwegian media, for those of you who saw the media episodes. So they're running more and more of this kind of like liberation theology stuff, with some skepticism included. And this was one of the articles where this sparked a little bit of controversy. There's also another photo where he's, this pastor sitting on the left here. He's inviting two guys in like full S&M, like Rob Halford outfits to come and to speak on it. But I mean, this is just a picture. Like, you have almost a literal demon in the middle of the mass here, speaking I mean, it would be interesting if they turned a camera so we could see who was actually in the church for this stuff.
Was this like not that it matters, but was this part of like a pride thing?
Yes.
Like an event, or was this just a...
Pride is just eternal now. Like it
No,
never
well,
ends.
of course, but I was thinking if it was like a special occasion, or
it is
or
a special
anything.
occasion. It's called Arctic Pride, and it's actually happening in the winter. It's in November, and like it's up in very far north in Norway. So Oslo Pride, that's in July, I think, or June. As it's 1 month.
Yeah, there's a pride where I live too that is not at the same time
Yes,
as Oslo
so
Pride.
so it's
a weird
always
thing.
going on.
Yeah,
I know that you have. There's also Gay History Month at one point, and I know that other countries celebrate Gay Pride at different months. So it's like every day of the year is Gay Pride in some country.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have too much to say around this picture. It's just sort of a point. I needed to put a point on it, just like with the intro sequence.
It's a nice look at where we're at, so to speak.
Yep.
And next up, you have given me an article that we're going to read through, which I did have a read through before this, and I was shocked. I'll put it that way, or maybe not shocked, but I'm angry that it's allowed to get this far, I guess. So let me just pull up the tab here. Let's see here. Share screen. And share. Hello?
I'm hearing you, but I'm not seeing the article.
No, all my browser windows just went into not responding mode. This is going great.
Going great so far. I can look at the. It seems like Mongolian Doggerland has like a Russian. Changed his name to Russian here. Asked if it is a cartoon. I'm sad to inform you that this is in fact real. Let's see. Vingle says, I went to my nephew's baptism in a church at Bislett. The priest, quote unquote, was a woman with dirty looking dreads and sneakers. The church servant was fat, green haired woman with a bull ring piercing. Yeah, that sounds unpleasant. I had a similar experience going to a baptism where, I didn't get the bull dykes and the kind of hardcore feminists, but it did have like a speech that was basically like the title of the speech is that was Jesus a feminist? That's what they were going with, and they had a long
Jesus.
There was it wasn't too much about gay stuff, but it was blackpilling to listen to. So are you getting the article up?
I think it's working now. Can you see it?
Yep. Do you wanna read from it?
Yeah, and I'm gonna drag it through. Oops, I'm gonna drag it through Google Translate for our international viewers, of course. A completely new view of gender slips into the system without resistance. Many professionals have a fear of being touched. I think this is supposed to be have a fear of touching this because they will not be perceived as intolerant, says Paul Suren, pediatrician at the National Institute of Health. I think it's the
Yes, I think that's the best
English
translation.
version. A kindergarten told children that you can be any gender you want. Then the girl, age 3, insisted that she was a boy. I want to be a boy, Mom. The little girl was 3 years old. The mother, who wishes to remain anonymous, tells of the period when her 3-year-old talked about being a boy several times, that she did not want her maiden name, and that she was, in fact, a boy. Her parents tried to understand what the feelings were due to and to reflect with her around them, but the 3-year-old insisted. I consider part of her behavior during the period to be a completely natural expression of some of her personality and interests, and perhaps also natural reactions to things she has experienced, says the mother. And she also says that the girl was especially attached to her father at this time, as they had just had a new baby that required a lot of motherly attention. The fact that she repeatedly expressed that she was or would be a boy, I see in retrospect that may have been a result of influence, in a period where she may have been extra vulnerable to it, she continues. At this time, she did not suspect any influence from the kindergarten at all, not until the parents were sent a message that the kindergarten had a special focus on the rainbow and that it symbolized, among other things, that you can be any gender you want. It turned out that the kindergarten tells the children that someone who is born a girl can choose to become a boy, and that this is something that is talked about in the kindergarten. The message gave the parents a feeling of unrest and powerlessness. Do you want to comment on anything before I go?
No, it's a good translation so far. We don't have to read the whole article. It's just until you
Well,
get
it's
to the
pretty
part
short,
with the
so
biftir and
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll just keep reading. I do not know if it was meant that way, but the message felt like a top-down message. It was almost like an upbringing of parents who might have to think differently, especially since this message came after the kindergarten had already trained the children for a period of time behind closed doors, which is a really scary thing. Free will not tell what they teach to kindergartens. The Association Free is one of the few actors in Norway that works to ensure that kindergartens and school have activities and schemes that promote the exploration of gender and gender role. And through Pink Competence, Free offers, according to itself, professional assistance and teaching about gender and sexual diversity to the school and the kindergarten sector. So this is two. Well, at least one of them is an NGO. I think the Pink Competence is like a task force, quote unquote.
No, Pink Competence is just one of the programs that the Association
program,
Free
right, yeah.
has. Like that's one of the services they offer to schools and different organizations, and they've been doing that since the early 2000s. I think in like 2007 is when they started to formalize that system and just offer Pink Competence to like these more elementary schools and kindergartens, like these institutions with younger individuals.
Right. Due to the family's anonymity, Minerva has not contacted the Oslo kindergarten to confirm that the Pink Competence has trained the employees. However, Minerva has asked Free about which kindergartens in Oslo the organization has taught, but it does not answer. They say they cannot state where they have held courses without it being clarified with the individual kindergarten. Minerva has also asked Free if we can look at course material used in the teaching. Free answers that they do not want to share the content with anyone other than those who have participated in the course. The reason is that the presentations must be understood in the light of the course content in general, which is should tell you enough about what this contains, I think.
It's the
We
open
can't
society,
give it to
the not so open society. Is that if you haven't been brainwashed already, we can't show you the material. It's like
you
it's
might
like
get the wrong idea.
third stage brainwashing, and you need to do the first courses.
Yeah,
we
it's
recommend that you're familiar
Scientology.
with the.
You're not at the correct level. Yeah.
Not familiar with the material, so this is advanced brainwashing. Sorry, this is for your own good.
And when asked whether the organization teaches kindergarten employees to tell children that they can choose which gender they want, Free answers that talking about, among other things, gender identity, and gender expression is in line with the framework plan's point on equality and equality. Let me see what the translation is here. Equality and equity, I suppose, is the translation.
That seems right.
Buff Deer, which is a shorthand, recommends Pink Competence without knowing what is being taught. The Directorate for Children, Youth and Families finances Pink Competence. They do this both indirectly by supporting Free with just under 5 million Norwegian kroner operating support, but also directly with 1.2 million Norwegian kroner for parts of Pink Expertise investments. So in dollars, I suppose you can just, shorthand divide that by like 10 or maybe 8.
Just divide it by 10 or move the comma. So, I mean, in terms of, for those of you who don't know what Bufdir is, that's like the Directorate of Family Affairs in Norway. So it's actually a very large organization. They have the responsibility for like the child care services, like foster home services, and like family planning, family education, and so on. It's really big.
Yes, it's quite a large organization. When Minerva asks the Directorate for Children, Youth and Families if the Directorate encourages Norwegian kindergartens to use Pink Competence initiatives, the department director answers, "We generally encourage all schools and kindergartens to increase their competence and security in gender and sexual diversity, as among other things, the framework plan for the kindergarten proposes." And she continues, "Courses from the Pink Competence are one such way of increasing this competence," which is a non-answer. That's basically yes.
Yeah, no, they're being incredibly secretive about this stuff, and I'll get back to that later in the presentation. But that's kind of the MO of this organization.
Yeah,
I mean, they have just like an incredible sort of will to power. A lot of these people who are in here, and they're quite aware that what they're doing is not optically sound. So they are
you
going
guys
to
in the chat, you should pay attention because you might learn something about how to operate.
Yeah, you might learn something. Like this is one of the I'll get back to that, but this is one of the interesting parts here. I mean, we can follow an organization from just being this kind of underground basement conspiracy organization to actually being like the main like meta-political institution for all types of policy that's regarding this sort of sexual and sexual identity matters that can just kind of squeeze politicians and pretty much every company and every institution. There's a lot of Machiavellian strategy that's gone into this, and a lot of chutzpah. Let's just say that. So you can just finish up the article.
Minerva has asked if the family directorate has quality checked the courses for Pink Competence that are held in schools and kindergartens. The directorate states that they have not done so and refers Minerva, the journalist, to the Directorate of Education, which is responsible for this teaching. But when Minerva hears from the Directorate of Education, the answer is that it is not the Directorate of Education's role to recommend which resources schools and kindergartens should use. So no one has quality checked this thing. No one has decided that this thing should be part of kindergarten education, yet it's everywhere.
Yep. No, it's
very an emergent phenomena.
It's emergence, bro. Like, I mean, it might, in some sense, it might just be emergent, but it's really interesting how these liberal systems operate, where something is just everywhere and nobody has any responsibility for it. I mean, of course, this is nonsense, but they kind of know that this is optically terrible, so they're just playing dumb. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in any position of power would be like, "Yeah, we're indoctrinating your 3-year-old kid. What about it?" So
not yet.
They're going to just pass the buck until they're not in trouble anymore. So now they are interviewing a pediatrician who says it is a toxic message. Free will not show the content from the kindergarten courses, nor from the school course. Pink Competence, however, has a freely available teaching program for primary and lower secondary school. Here you will find, for example, statements such as for the 1st to 4th year children in schools, remember that not all people have a gender identity as either boy or a girl. This can be nice to mention when teaching about gender. From year 5 to 7 in school, many boys have penises and many girls have a clitoris, but not all. And from year 8 to 10, which is, I suppose, middle school, remember that everyone decides their own gender identity and that not everyone has a gender identity that corresponds to the gender one was registered at birth. This content makes Paul Suren, pediatrician and researcher at the Department of Child Health and Development at the National Institute of Public Health, respond. It is not just pointless, it is also a toxic message, he says about Free's teaching program. Suren himself has, among other things, been responsible for the National Institute of Public Health's consultation statement on the national guideline for the treatment of gender incongruence. And he believes that the impression left behind when Free claims that children can choose their own gender is that, for example, girls who deviate from gender norms are not really girls, or that they at least ask questions about their own gender. So is this like a tomboy appreciator? That's the meme about like they're brainwashing our tomboys.
we love our tomboys. So
that's a comment from Nordan on here.
Yeah, it is.
Gender confirming treatment. I do not like that word.
There we go again.
Legal
There's
and
that word.
available in Norway, and the school system should also teach of it. But it is something other than giving children information that is biologically crazy and gives them a perception that you're not really a boy or a girl if you have behaviors and interests that are not typical of your biological gender, Suren continues. I feel he's a bit milquetoast, this guy. Like, I feel his argument is basically, I want to go back to 2010.
Yeah, that's like all of them. I think that's they feel that's the price of admission.
I think maybe speaking. That's it. Like he's not like cathedral wise allowed to go harder than this, but it just infuriates me that a liberal is arguing with a liberal about you're being too liberal and we should be slightly less liberal.
Yes, I think he doesn't want to lose his job. He wants to say something. I do appreciate him just for saying something. I think a lot of these people just have to articulate themselves like that, and they have to preface, I'm totally on board with the progressive project, but going a little fast here, guys. It's a little bumpy. We gotta slow it down so that everybody's nice and comfortable, and we can have like real, gender fluidity in 2050 or something. That's kind of the criticism that you can actually give.
Yes, as Janner95 says, is a back to Fresh Prince. That's an academic agentism, isn't it? The gender norm paradox. The pediatrician believes that if one is to help those who break with gender norms, one does not do so by saying that they do not fit into the framework of the gender to which they belong biologically. You do it rather by telling them that the framework should also include them, which is, that this is literally feminism from like 10 years ago.
Yeah, we
talked about this already.
And that's what they're growing up on. But we're getting to this stuff. Like I just like to explain it. Like this is like Windows 8 versus Windows 10. It's like these people just have the last operating system and they're arguing about semantic
Duran
things.
Here is angry about Windows 11.
Yep.
Yeah. Suren also points to an underlying paradox. It's Pink Competence that actually demonstrates the narrow understanding of gender, even though they claim to the opposite. And that's because they quickly jump to the conclusion that a girl might actually be a boy if they do not fit into typical gender patterns. Again, it's 2010 feminism meeting 2020 feminism.
This is not real feminism.
Yeah. Basically, it is good that the framework is expanded for what is allowed for boys and girls. It is great that it is allowed to try out different gender expressions, but when this is connected to the fact that one is born with the wrong biological sex, the phenomenon gets a dark underside. It is not just about experimentation and exploration anymore. Some may also be influenced to initiate irreversible changes to their bodies. It may help aggravate the occurrence of gender dysphoria. Who is it that prepares the teaching work for Pink Competence, asks Suren, the pediatrician. Which professionals have been involved? The scheme conveys an understanding of gender that differs from that on which medicine and biology are otherwise based. So, I mean, here he's asking a question which he's never going to get an answer to. He's asking the cathedral who's calling the shots, and the answer, of course, is no one, because that's how it works. But the second one we talked a bit about in the Rank Punditer stream, where he's, arguing that, well, this isn't the science. And unfortunately, this is the science. It's just you're part of the STEM
science.
fields, my dude. But the STEM fields aren't the one who's deciding this stuff.
I mean, if just to steal, man, you have a lot of these liberals who are actually, attached up to this, Karl Popper open society concept. And like on its own, it is actually a strong position. At least, it's easy for us to kind of sit here and try to out edge each other and see who can be the most right wing and who wants the most like Sharia law and stuff. But if you're getting in a room with adults and you have to actually explain a position, like this is the frame that a lot of people are going to be in, like these more quote unquote sensible liberals, that they have the actual sort of open society, that's the kind of pejorative now in our circles because of the Open Society Foundation and Soros.
That's probably a way to get your foot in the door when talking to an NPC, so to speak. But I do think if you get people on one-on-one terms, and you tell them that these people are trying to tell 3-year-olds that they're born in the wrong body, everyone will agree that this is absolutely insane and it's wrong and evil. Most people, right? Unless you sit next to like a complete lefty.
Yeah, these people are very flexible. We see that with the media now.
Well, fair enough. It's probably
you can sit and push them, and I don't really know where their actual moral compass goes. But I don't think that's a controversial thing to say that I'm against 3-year-olds being told that they can.
No, but that's the weird thing, right? That's the weird power of the system we live in, where you can have that conversation with a person one-on-one, and they'll still sort of toe the line in a societal sense, right?
Yep.
Everyone will individually agree that this is strange and evil and pedophilic and et cetera, but then because the paper says so, no one will speak up.
Yeah, I don't have a rival paper. I don't have I don't have 100 newspapers that agree with me. So I don't have my own I don't have my own Buffdid or anything. I just have Joe Rogan and some articles.
Just build your own
Facebook.
directorate of health. Yeah. Jesus. People are talking about back to Flexness in the chat. That's probably something I should get Vingel to do a stream on that. If we have Leo to do some Swedish stuff, and we get Burkarl to do Moomin, then we have like a trifecta of good old lore.
That's safe for YouTube content. I kind of like that. I want to go back to watching Moomin now.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Suren believes that it is special to let something special to let an activist organization take responsibility for this teaching without quality assurance from any academic institutions. According to Suren, such a choice presupposes an assumption that Free has an unproblematic view of sexuality and gender. But the vast majority of physicians will believe that this understanding is contrary to basic medical and biological knowledge, he says. Again, the majority of physicians, unquote, is not the people who decides this. So
even in their case, you can get physicians to believe a lot of retarded stuff, and you see that throughout history.
Too. A completely new view of gender slips into the system and is established without any resistance. Many professionals have anxiety to touch this because they will not be perceived, or they will be perceived as reactionary or intolerant. Good.
Yes,
more reactionary.
Yes, Chad. They don't want to be the yes, Chad.
Yeah. And this is problematic, for the incidence of gender dysphoria has increased significantly in the recent years, and without knowing exactly what the cause is, and it is especially teenage girls who seek healthcare. I mean, yeah, we don't know what it is because everything has stayed the same the past 10 years and
Yeah.
nothing has changed, and it's just, this just started happening out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's been I read the statistic that it's from 2012 it's been doubling every year.
Yeah.
So
It's
I guess
we don't
nothing's
know why
changed.
this is happening.
There's nothing that's changed in the culture or anything. So
No.
but I guess I don't have the backwards regression meta analysis studies, so I can't do anything.
You
Sorry.
don't have like a peer-reviewed source.
Yeah.
You can't stop noticing things with your own eyes. Bigot. One can think that this teaching program can help reinforce this trend. One plants a notion that something is wrong and needs to be changed. Just some boilerplate about who's getting the money. Do you want to read the response?
Nah, I don't think we should. I didn't plan for that. It's
just
going to be
politician
infuriating.
speak.
It's politician speak from the guy you see on the right there, who's like the responsible, tough guy with the arms crossed. Of course, it's just politician speak, but they have pretty good PR,
Yeah,
and he doesn't even look retarded. Like, I mean, he looks like an actual serious man with like he's got the business casual shirt on
this
there.
guy here on the
there's no
on the
blue
right.
hair or nose rings or any kind of like dysgenic features or anything. Like he looks like a serious representative.
Yeah. Okay, and then we'll go back to the presentation here. Oh no, which one is the correct one? Is this the correct one? Yes, it is.
Yeah, there we go. So I just wanted to do like a quick overview about what I wanted to speak on for this one. So you see, I was actually like reading the book there from Kjell Skartveit. So I'm going to just plug that book. I think it was a good read. It's about it's close to 400 pages. Normlös, as it's called, normless. It really has more of an emphasis of like the post 2000s, where they really start with this kind of queer theory and how this kind of queer theory, like the stuff you're seeing here with the kindergartens and the kind of new software download in the gay movement with this sort of gender fluidity and gender identity stuff, how that has just completely supplanted every institution. And he's very thorough. But the guy has an actual job. Like, I think he works at a lecturer on a university where he's teaching about law and history. So he's very careful in that book not to be too polemic. And I from my perspective, I really would like these authors to just be as edgy as possible, but he has to be like very careful, and there's a lot of deliberation and boilerplate talk, and like a lot of the book is spent on this more kind of judicial considerations, and what is the implication of co-mothership, of like Sally and Alice having a child together, and what about what is the judicial precedent for surrogacy, and it can be a little bit dry at times. It's not like this kind of sprawling Da Vinci Code conspiracy theory book. It's really more of like it's a bit more academic, but you're gonna get your fill of detail about what's been going on, like from the 2000s and up until today. So I absolutely recommend it. Did you have something, Walrus? Are you familiar with this book?
I was not familiar with it. I have read a bit about it after you told me about it, but that's a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I figured I'd probably get to it at some point when I have the other stack finished.
But the author is not like, he's not this kind of Con Inc. Höjre, center höjre, right bullshitter. Like, I've heard interviews with him, and he's actually talking about like we need to just go back and like even to the French Revolution and try to actually rethink how we structure society and rethink what we think about discrimination. Like, he is definitely at like our level of like our power level. So that's what you're going to get with him. It's like, it just has to be very kind with the language, but he's not trying to blackball some liberal bullshit view in there. He actually is just like genuinely sort of Christian theologian trying to give a contrary perspective on it. So the photo on the left there is sort of Kim Friele. And by the way, I hope I didn't ruin his career. Like that somebody's just going to bring up this podcast to him at work and like, yo, you were endorsed by this sort of reactionary.
These
streaming
Nazis on the
channel.
internet just called you out.
Nazis.
Wow, I didn't know you were
Give you
writing
a prize,
like Nazi propaganda, my dude. Yeah, no.
But
No.
it's well, okay, we're sorry. I do not want to ruin this guy's career. I hope I don't do it. We'll find some way to handle that if it comes up. But the woman on the left here is Kim Friele. And she's not. I didn't know who she was until I started researching this. But she is like the great woman of history. We talk about that in these circles, like the great man of history who without this person who couldn't have changed. History would not be the way that it is. And like from the progressive LGBTQ friendly perspective, she is sort of the great woman of history. And in the beginning, I kind of suspected that this is like a kind of an MLK figure that they have just like propped up some person who's just going to be like a front figure, hold speeches, be like a PR person. But no, the funeral was actually paid for by the government. She has had like every acolyte possible. No, maybe not accolade, but every like prize possible that you can get in Norway. I think is the word. Accolade that's possible to get in Norway. And yeah, the state paid for the funeral. It was huge. So the people with power know who she is, and the celebrities and the people who are in the really in crowd, they know who this woman is. And like, to prepare for this, I was listening to a lot of this kind of like queer theory, this kind of queer history channels, which is a thing that I come back to, is that, they're getting to record all of the history. That's another annoying point, is that we need more of this revisionist stuff, because these people get to actually document their own history. And the only thing I can do here is just to kind of retell their version of the story from like our perspective. But no, I don't believe that she was a figurehead. She actually seems like, from listening to the interviews, that she has enough of an understanding of like how propaganda works, how organizations should be structured, and how political movements should work. And this is the thing that something I really wanted to talk about on these streams, is the kind of portrait of the high agency person, or the kind of elite person. And it's not just about people who are billionaires or who are top politicians, but people who are able to get a lot of stuff done within their
about
lifetime.
Sort of the bureaucrat or the activist.
Yeah, they could be bureaucrats, and it almost doesn't matter where they're starting from. If they're starting from a bureaucracy or they're starting from some kind of activist position, they're somehow able to just almost say someone like Tony Blair, who's like this very high agency person. She's not at the level of Tony Blair, but she's definitely gives the impression of being like this very high agency individual who is very pragmatic about this cause, who's not coming to this like as a sort of idealist who wants everybody to be happy. And like, she sort of understands that she needs to piss people off, and she will have to lie to people, and she'll have to, deliberately try to trick people into believing certain things. So we get more into that later.
It's dark lordism, so to speak. It
is dark lordism, but it's I think it's very important for people in our sphere to see that. That's a sort of like, this is what it takes to get political power and to get stuff done. And even if you're not involved in politics, let's say you just work at a workplace, or you're in an organization, you can bring this stuff with you in your daily life to try to be more high agency. And we need that. We need as many like high agency people as possible.
A network of tens, if you will.
Network of tens, yeah. You try to pump the numbers up, so to speak. So on the
and as we talked about earlier, if nothing else, it's sort of like a good. The position we are in today would almost be the position they were in.
Yes,
50 years
I'm
ago.
really glad you caught on to that, because that's what was sort of a takeaway from that. There's no guarantee that we can have the same life cycle or the same path to power that they had, but they were starting from a point where what they were doing was illegal. Like, they were sitting in these sort of like basement locales where you had to have a password to get in there. You had to be recommended from someone else, and they had rules about engagement and who could talk to who outside of it, and it was, like Fight Club. But so the picture on the right here is that I have Bent Høie, who's been our Minister of Health the last 2 years, with his his husband there. So we have the otter and the bear standing back
It's
there.
a classic
yeah.
classic pairing, isn't it?
Classic pairing. I mean, when I started this presentation, if I were to make it again, I don't know if I would even have him as this kind of main guy. It was my impression, just from reading newspapers and reading about Norwegian politics, that this guy was like a mover and a shaker. Like he was also a kind of a great man of history. But when I look closer at it, he's actually more of like this kind of career politician guy who's just really he just tries to do his job, and he's just being pressured by all these other organizations to do stuff. He's not he's not taking a lot of initiative.
That's a bit strange, because the way he has acted during the coup, I think that he had built enough political capital to probably take over the.
Well, yeah, I think he did. We'll get back to that, but he's been like the default
prime minister seat at some point.
He has been like the default prime minister for the last 2 years with the pandemic. Because Erna Solberg, that's like the actual prime minister. She is just there as a figurehead, like we talked about. She is a woman. She's just there as a shield for this party, and she had almost nothing. Like she did almost nothing in these 2 years, and he was like the Minister of Health, and he did all the speaking and these sort of TV appearances. Not very well, but he did it. And Anna was just basically doing these kind of tours. I know people who work in the schools, like in elementary schools, and they were telling, every day, like they had Anna on Supernytt. That's like this kids show. So she was just sitting, like reading to children and doing all this kind of trivial stuff while he was actually answering to the media about, this is our plan for the lockdown, or, it was actually more just do what I say, bigot, but we'll get to that. So yeah, I think you could just go to the next slide.
Mongolian Doggerland with a funny observation in the chat here.
Yes.
But yes, it's an unfortunate translation. It is. Right, next slide. Okay.
So this is the Norske Forbundet av 1948, like the Norwegian Association of 1948. That is really just the Norwegian branch of the Danish organization that's just called the Association of 1948. This is a kind of interesting point here, because this was an association that was created by a Dane that's called Axel Axgill. He has changed his name multiple times, but he created this sort of underground organization because he wanted to secure rights for gays specifically. Like he looked at the Human Rights Declaration that was made in like the end, after the Second World War, and he felt like it wasn't, it didn't secure enough rights for gays.
So the goal of reminder that the human rights are not rights; they're privileges. Just real quick.
Yeah, sure thing. No, I agree, but we're just for simplicity's sake. So then,
of course, I'm just. I just can't let it slide.
They are rights in this. Okay, he wanted to secure more privileges for gays, and that's been like, that just it just sums up the whole thing. Like they okay, we have this group of people who are queer, some kind of deviant sexual interest. Well, they wanted guaranteed privileges from the state, and that was kind of the goal from the start. Interesting fact about this guy Axel, he actually served in the SS in the Second World War. Oh, really? So yeah, so it's like the eternal Dane at it again. There's no you check the early life, there's nothing interesting there. That's I'd hope that I could get like a more simple explanation here, that I would just look at the early life sections of like Kim Friele and this Axel Axgill, and just get the expected early life stuff, and we would just go from there. But it's a bit more complicated. Like that the tribe population is very small in the Scandinavian countries, so you can't just default to this this kind of like fascination lens, unfortunately.
No, right. Do you want me to open any of those?
No, just a moment. We could look at the history. I'm just going to explain here that okay, this is the trajectory of the.
Real quick before we go further, I'll knock out some chats. Oops. When you were talking about the emergent phenomena, yes, this is why private charter schools help, but is not a solution. The teachers themselves and where they're trained, college and university. Very correct.
Yep.
That icon, that's from a video game. I don't remember which one. Okay. Anyway, it's it's a thing I've been discussing with my wife lately about the future of our children in that sense, and we have a kindergarten right down the street, like 3 minutes away, which is part of why we moved here. And they last month I think they had like pride flags for like 2 weeks straight.
Oh,
I don't know
no.
why, but it's probably something like they're doing the free education program, right? So now I have to look for something else, right? And we've gotten to the point where the only option is probably to go full political Christian here and send our schools to a Christian private school and probably try to sort of screen the teachers there, to make sure that they're not
you
going to
might
do
have to
this
screen
stuff.
them there as well, but you see this stuff seeping into the Christian environments as well, and they're always under threat from the Norwegian government to the remove if they don't fill the quotas and they don't do all this kind of pink competency stuff. They're going to take their government money.
Yes,
So
I remember watching a debate about some of this trans rights stuff a couple of weeks ago, and there was a Christian guy, a pastor, on the debate, and his question was basically, well, are the Christian schools going to be allowed to not teach this? Basically asking for freedom of association in the same way that I suppose the Amish would have. And the answer ultimately is no. But I think for now, that's one of the better places to send your kids, because you can at least, if nothing else, the Christians would be willing to do the whole like, yeah, we'll say we taught it, but we'll not actually do it.
Yeah, but you could also you could just go into one of these kindergartens and try to network with the parents and see if there's someone else who feels the way you do. And perhaps you could sort of organize to try to damage control. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about, is that, it's not just me who's got a problem with this. Like there's going to be progressively more people who are either just like really tired of it or have some kind of anti-progressive thoughts or sentiments, and that you could kind of use that to push the people there to kind of either minimize it or something else.
Yeah, you're going to have to. I think that's the hard part. Like, we're going to have to do these things ourselves, and
Yes.
we're going to have to be the annoying people who sort of whips the other parents into a frenzy. But I mean, that works for the left. So if nothing else, like we can argue about tactics and etc. But if it makes sure that my child isn't going to be forced through this stuff, then I think it's worth it, even if it's like a short-term victory. Jay Green River here, coming in clutch with a icon being from Neverwinter Nights. Thank you. Lucky Pants saying a stream about recipients of knighthood and how it has lost its meanings over time might be interesting. Could also get into the subversion of monarchy. Yeah, that's a whole thing in and of itself.
Yeah, I need to do some more research, but we're going into the subversion of the knighthood here. But yeah, just as a type of, I mean, you see the name changes here. It goes from being like the Norwegian branch of the Danish Association of 1948 to then being, in the 90s, it's basically the Association of Lesbians and Homosexuals, where they merged with a lot of other similar organizations. And then in 2016, it's actually quite recent, they changed the name to the Association Free. That it's very opaque. It's very kind of clandestine. So they go from and being kind of they're more sort of secretive in the beginning, like this, and to being more explicit there in the 90s, then going back to being more secretive, like we saw in the article. They didn't want to talk about what they're doing, but they have experience with this stuff. And I made just like this point underneath there with like it started out basically as like this underground social club. That was this, like, they were just getting together in these secretive locales, and they would put ads in the newspaper where they would have like this, it was under a fake name. So they would just go there and just do dancing and drinking and what you would call, I mean, it wasn't the 1950s, so it was a lot more prudent than a lot of the gay scene would have been like in the 70s, 80s, and like it is. It was not sort of like standard, fuck party swing stuff. It was more of like this, okay, we have these people who are gay, are just going to have this dance and song scene, mostly dominated by men. A few women in there. We'll get into why that was later, because formally the Norwegian sodomy laws, it only forbids sodomy between men. So lesbianism was actually never illegal in Norway, and that's why like this movement was basically mostly men in the beginning. In the 60s, they move on to being more of this, like you said, this avant-garde intellectual movement where they just do lectures and they have speakers, they write articles, and they want to just invite people in there to have debates. And it is like it reminds me of like the way YouTube has been now, with the way like the dissident right, where it's really has this focus on just we'll just do academic lectures and put on people for debates and try to discuss topics and inform people about it and so on. Later it becomes like this more serious organization. Like that's where this woman, Kim Friele, comes into it, and she has a different vision for this organization, to make it more of like this hardline lobbying, serious organization where people stop being anonymous and they actually, come out under full name. They go a lot harder against the opposition, and they have like these kind of serious plans to kind of attack the political machinery, which they do very successfully until now, where they are basically this omnipresent NGO that can basically push everything from private businesses to like Bufdir with the foster homes to prime ministers. I mean, pretty much anybody. It's a little bit like the ADL. They can just put anybody in their place if they say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So I don't know if there's anything more on the history tab. We could go back there. I think I got most of the important part. With you could click on the Kim Friele link.
Yes, I have the Wikipedia article up. Do you want me to switch to that? Or not?
Yeah, you can switch to that. The Kim
See
Friele
if
wiki article.
I don't crash my browser this time. I'm gonna send this through the Google machine real quick. Okay.
So I thought, I mean, I have. I think she is from Bergen. Basically, it has just kind of been a lesbian, or sort of claimed lesbian, her whole life. I mean, it's like I said, lesbianism was not, formally illegal in this country, and just to sit and psychologize, I think that she was driven more out of just kind of spite for the system, more than any like genuine, I want to express myself and I want to do this. I mean, she was just kind of like this kind of hard-nosed type lesbian person who has just been able to organize and run this machine. I would sort of credit her for turning the sort of association of 1945 into more of the serious type of organized, effective lobbying organization. Like they went from being like this more artsy thing to this more hardline thing, and she talks about it in interviews that you had a lot of people in that movement who wanted to contribute by writing articles and writing books and doing that stuff, but she wanted to go right to strategies, and she certainly has. I think it's more interesting to look at the arts and honors. Like some of the people in the comments talk about how the knighting system has been subverted, and how a lot of these awards system. Let's see, if you look at the prices, it's just ridiculous the amount of acolytes she has.
Hang on a second. Like, I'm not a scholar of this person. What's going on with? Is this a translation bug, or are we talking?
Husband.
It says husband, but I think it's yeah.
No, it is
a translation.
It's not
bug.
A man. Yeah. I do not know. I don't think she was a dedicated communist. I did not get that impression. It's not. It's not been mentioned anywhere.
Right.
I mean,
she seems more like just like a realpolitik kind of
yes,
person.
yes, she's almost just kind of like non-political, I would describe, but she just
Right.
has this kind of like spite toward the system. Where it's like, well, why can't I just like kiss all the girls that I want or something, like where you're gonna tell me that I can't do this stuff and like screw you, basically. There's very little idealism to anything. She just wanted to kind of stick it to the right people, and I think that's actually a kind of useful attitude to have. You don't get bogged down in this sort of mire of ideology and religion that I see, unfortunately, some people getting into, where the friend enemy distinction become very blurred. I don't know if you have that impression, Walrus.
No, I actually agree with you, but I don't think I have anything to add on it. I was just trying to read a bit here on the arts and honors, but
I'm thinking more about the prizes and awards. I was unfortunately I was not able to read any of these books. I just we might have to go back to that if I look at some of these books, and
that might be fun.
Give more of a detailed overview of how they actually subverted all these systems. So, but with the prizes and awards there, because I wanted to, she's been given the award of like the fourth most important Norwegian of the last century.
She's an honorary member of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
How does that work? And why did she accept? That's the strange one.
But that's interesting. But like, she was never in any political party.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It was always metapolitical and just like pure Machiavellian influence.
Interesting. She was buried 1621. Prime Minister gave a speech. The Queen gave a speech. The Crown Princess gave a speech. The Minister of Culture were present. Okay. Yeah.
So, but this is talking about the type of power that this has had, because I mean, you have two explanations for this. Is that either they had a kind of consensus that this was the way that things were going to go, and she was sort of just standing in front, paving the way for what they wanted, or that like this movement has just been so powerful that they forced these people to accept their values in spite of what they privately might believe, to the point where they have to cuck and stand there and give these speeches and do all this embarrassing shit. I put that at the end of the intro, where you have our current Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. Everybody is at this Pride festival dancing around with these roses and all this stuff.
Huh. Interesting also, I'll note that her spouse is from 1990 through 2016. I think she must have died in 2016 then.
Yep.
But she has a brief marriage for like 1 year with a lawyer.
She tried to be straight apparently for 1 year. And then
she couldn't take it anymore.
She couldn't take it. So
okay. So let's go back to the presentation.
Yeah, but let's see if you could find out. You could find the other link there to like the most important Norwegians. I think it's just funny to look at it. I don't know if you can find that under the prices.
Oh yeah, the Norwegian of the century.
Yeah, Norwegian of the century thing.
Yeah, I have it here. Let's see if I can just.
So here we go. We got Olav the Fifth, Einar Gerhardsen, that we've covered on the first episode of Longhouse. I thought that he would be number one actually, but it's a very long period. Then we got Erik Bye. So she is above Thor Heyerdahl. Basically, it's pretty nuts.
That is insane. And how? Wow.
So Fridtjof Nansen down at 10th.
Yeah.
Hamsun 17th.
I mean, most of these I'd agree with, but it's strange. Like, for someone like, they don't teach you about her in school, which is interesting. You know, it's one of these things that they don't point out her role.
No, I don't know. Maybe like if you go into school now, they'll talk about it. I'm actually curious about that. If there's anyone in the audience that is like a younger, if they're Zoomers or Generation Alpha, if they've heard about Kim Friele in school, because I can guarantee you've heard about Thor Heyerdahl and Einar Gerhardsen and Erik Bye, some of these other
Yeah,
people,
for
but
our international viewers, the list here basically goes our king, uh, the man from our first stream, Einar Gerhardsen, who is, mythologically said to have rebuilt the country after the war. Ygby, which is a very known folk singer. I'm not sure if he should be this
no, I think that's a little high too.
high.
Yeah.
To Heyerdahl, which is one of our famous explorers, etc., etc. Going further down, there's great men and women here, but she, I will say, sticks out as someone who shouldn't be this high, especially since nobody really knows about her.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it seems like only the people who have power, who are sort of in the know, knows about her, and they put her this high. But like the regular person in the street, they don't even know who this is. And that's sort of one of the points of this stream as well. When you have a lot of these centrists that come out and talk about, they'll talk about this, what's happening with all this LGBT stuff, and they don't even know who this is. So I feel like it's kind of a non-starter if you don't have any clue about the Norwegian history of this stuff. But I think we can go back to the presentation. I just thought this was kind of a cool thing to include.
Yeah, it was funny. So she's the fourth candidate on the Norwegian of the century. Yeah, let's go back to.
So yeah, but she joins the organization in the 60s, and then she's the chairwoman, or like she has like the highest position in that organization by the 70s, and that's when they're like probably, I think it really gets sufficient. And we'll look at that with some of these later slides, the amount of legal stuff that they're able to get pushed through in the 70s. So she has the knighthood as well. We don't need to go too much into that. And I've already talked about this, the psychology of the movers and shakers, and trying to, I really wanted to do more streams on like elite people to try to, you look at, like you talked about the network of tens, try to find out, what makes these, the people who are successful. But yeah, I've already covered a lot of it, so we can just move on.
Yep.
Did you know about this? Did you know about this, Walrus?
I know about sort of the. I've heard about it in school. I remember.
Yeah.
But please, you can probably dive deeper.
Like, I mean, in the book that I showed in one of the overview slides, like the Normløst book, and when you talk to people about, the story of gays in Norway, they talk about gay marriage. That's what people know about. In 2008, gay marriage became legal, and that's like the turning point. Before that, it was just okay. Like it was really, it was just so conservative or whatever. But then gay marriage was legalized because of Obama or something. So then we really changed society. It was just really
right.
Good. And
that would probably be my answer 10 years ago.
Yes. But like this is actually the turning point. And the agenda, I mean, you look at the organization, like the Association of 1948, when, because of this law, the organization is basically illegal, right? So what they're doing is promoting sodomy as defined by this law. And so they're promoting sodomy. They're a secret organization, and they basically plan to change the law in a way that benefits them. So this is a conspiracy.
It was named. Right? It was in the section of crimes against morality, if I remember correctly.
It was,
which is certainly a title.
I mean, could you maybe just click the link so we can see the? We can look
at
the full paragraph.
You gave me is it's invalid, but I can probably find the original.
You think you
text.
could just? I think you just type the text in Google. I think you'll find.
I'm trying to find. I'm not sure if I can find it in any sort of like legal, because it's no longer there, right?
No, but they have the historical record of what it was. So now they just use that as like.
I think they don't want to show it, so I'm gonna have to find it in like an old.
Interesting. I need to check
Wikipedia
why
thing.
Isn't working. Let's see. Oh well, it doesn't work. Let's see.
I found a Wikipedia thing that mentions it.
Well, the Wikipedia, this one is, that's where it is. So let's see if you can zoom in a little bit. We can read.
This is the Google Translate version
yeah.
of a very legal Danish text. But it says, if lewd intercourse takes place between persons of the male sex, those who are guilty of it or who participate in it are punished with imprisonment for up to 1 year. With the same punishment is considered the one who has a lewd association with animals or who participates in it. Påtale, that is incrimination? Or is it only takes place when it requires for general reasons? So let me see what the original text here is.
It's a charge, basically, a criminal charge. That's what it means.
It's a criminal charge. That's basically the...
Yeah. So this is a law that was, it was almost never applied. It was almost never used, just to give a perspective on, what was the past like. Because you get told this story about, like, these people with this awful, like, dark past where everybody's just homophobic, everybody's terrible. They had this one law that was... it comes from a Christian perspective. Like, this is sodomy. And so what you'll notice here is that it's only between men. So a man shall not lie with another man. That's where it is from. So lesbianism has always been legal. And the punishment was basically, okay, it's up to 1 year. It's not that long, and it was hardly ever enforced. This is the interesting thing.
It actually, we talked about it a bit before stream, and we talked about it on the Rank Pundity stream, which was also about all of this stuff, that there's a need to have societal blockers against the gay, quote unquote, and then you can sort of let the couple slip through the cracks of those who are the masculine homosexuals, so to speak.
Yeah. But you see, like, with this stuff, it was barely ever used, but it is this thing Academic Agent says, and I keep repeating it: society is downstream from law. So just because it was
define the culture through the
never
law,
used, it was still incredibly, like, it had a lot of effect, to the point where, like, people didn't want to, like, if you say you were an open homosexual, people didn't want to hire you at a job because it's very unlikely that you're going to be penalized for it, but they sort of knew the law, and they knew that this was against the law, so they felt like they would be in a gray area here, even though it's not enforced. So it's still like this very guiding principle. As far as the animal welfare stuff, like they say, they say it underneath there is that, zoophilia, or like, intercourse with animals, is still illegal, but it's considered as a form of animal abuse. So they've also, by repealing this stuff, they've also made it easier for that sort of, like, zoophilia, the dog fuckers, to come in later. And we'll talk about that later in the stream, but I'm just just mentioning it. As you see underneath there was a proposal to repeal it in the 1950s, and they, there's a lot of stuff they thought, well, we barely use this stuff, and it's not just, and so on. If you go back to the presentation,
I wonder why this fence is here. We should probably tear it down.
Wonder what? Yeah, but I'll give a little bit more of an explanation of. First of all, the first point on the agenda, like, with the Association of 1948 with Kim Friele at the head, was basically, we get rid of this law. And already there you can sort of see that.
Did you want to go back to the presentation?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
That she, she sort of knew that society is like, culture is downstream from law, society is downstream from law. She said that if we can't get rid of that law, it doesn't matter how much advocacy work we do. Like, it sort of doesn't matter. We have to then get rid of this. And that's going to be that was like the first major thing. And, like, this was the turning point in the, in my view, in, like, the Norwegian gay history, that they were able to get rid of this stuff. It's not the gay marriage. The gay marriage is a victory lap for them. This is like the actual, after they'd knocked this down, they could just keep knocking down more stuff. So then the question is now, like, how did they manage to do it? Because it was they tried to do it in the 50s, and then they made an attempt in the 70s. And I mean, the change from in the culture from, like, when this law had been put in there to when they were able to repeal it, is that it had become medicalized. Homosexuality, I mean.
As in, it was like a medical
Yes, it's become a medical diagnosis. So in the
Diagnosis,
beginning, this is basically from the Christian perspective, it's a sin, right? It's just it's a moral failing.
So the way they do it is they move it from the morality to sort of, we can fix this.
Yeah, to the point where it's like they just treat it like, it's from this psychological Freudian lens that it's like this kind of thing that's a medical disease. And the argument then was that, well, we're not going to penalize people for being sick. We can't penalize people for basically having an illness.
That's been done with other things. I'm sure of it. I remember
Yes.
something else. Like I'm sure someone in the chat can mention something, but
This
that's
is
not a new tactic.
That was the tactic, and like you'll see interviews with Kim Friele, like one of these videos they put out. That's the anniversary of the repealing of the paragraph 213. Excuse me. Where she actually talks about her strategy for this is that she needed to convince the skeptics because there were a lot of people that were just hardline against repealing it. So she was not interested in trying to preach to the choir. She wanted to. It's almost like Edward Bernays. It's that, she doesn't care what they believed in. She had to change their mind in order to get a majority to vote for repealing it. And she took the medicalization angle to basically say that this is the science. This is what the science says. Homosexuality is a disease, and we can't penalize people for being sick. And it was also the trivialization angle is that, well, we barely don't use it anyway, so we can just get rid of it. And this won over a majority of people of like good faith conservatives who accepted the framing that, well, yeah, it is a sickness, so we have to then treat the sickness. And that is kind of I would say that's like the boomer truth, like I've written there. That is kind of the psyop. And interestingly enough, if you watch, we talked about Harald Eia and the Brainwash documentary, and like the angle that he takes, like that is actually this angle. Like,
it's the same angle.
If you're on the right wing of the spectrum, that's what they want you to think. They want you to think that like this is a medical thing, that
they want you to have
transsexuality
is a medical condition, and
Yes.
the cure is to,
well, there's no cure, right? It's just
you have to take your hormone blockers and do a life-changing surgery to put it in a way that won't get me demonetized.
But they are these victims of it. And with them, like, I mean, Kim never believed it. Like, these people never believed that stuff, but they knew they could use it, so they would bring in these reports, like stuff from the Netherlands. Like, they were sort of the progressive pioneers in this field of like research, quote unquote, on this on the gay issue, where there's like, we have all of these psychologists who are giving who've written all these papers about how this like a medical condition. The thing is that like the medical angle is very easy to knock down because it was standing on such a shaky ground to begin with. I mean, when I say medicalized, it was really treated as a medical condition back then, to the point where it's like they wouldn't allow you into certain countries. Let's say I would try to move from Norway to the United States, and I was openly gay. They wouldn't let me in there because if they thought it was a disease and that I would infect other people. So it's like Family Guy, it's like, you got the gay, we have to, we got a gay. And they like, that was the mainstream narrative, and it's very easy to knock that down because it is just bullshit ultimately. So
I see. That is incredibly smart, actually, because you move it from a moral failing to, controlling your enemy into taking this opposition, which is essentially a straw man.
Yep.
And then it's super easy to knock over. Yeah.
And then you can just knock that over. And they succeeded, so you can move on to the next slide. So now we're in the 70s, right? And like there you see like the chutzpah, like the absolute insolence of this movement, that they convinced basically they convinced the skeptics to remove the paragraph by saying that this is a medical issue, and then they removed the medical issue. Like they basically removed
within 5
medical
years.
diagnosis within 5 years.
Nice.
So that this was always a part of the plan. It's like, okay, well, you got this, and then now we're just, the conservatives are always behind. They're always behind. So now we're just going straight to just removing the diagnosis, and then after that, the paragraph is gone, the diagnosis is gone. Well, what's stopping them from just pushing more legislation? What legs do you have to stand on at this point? So they're completely deadlocked, all of the conservatives, and they just keep on pushing more legislation here. So they get the church to sort of accept legal safety for gay employees. I mean, it just means that, you know, they're not going to be outed for being gay, or they're going to be allowed to work there, and they can't fire them for if they find out that they have an orientation that's not in line with their theology. And then you have in these 1979, it's like they have, you know, rights for gays in the military, where it's you know, it was the same thing. The military took that kind of disease, the medical angle, is that the you know, if you are gay, then you're basically mentally sick, and then therefore you can't serve. So this was also where, like, it's very commonly used as an excuse where people would pretend they were gay to avoid the draft. And it's also like it's so easy to knock this down, is that, well, you know, you have all these people, they're just pretending to be gay and it's not that bad. So they can just keep knocking these, opening up these institutions to gayness like dominoes almost.
Yeah, once it starts, it's you know, it's off balance, so you can just keep pushing.
So the 70s was, I mean, it was a great decade for the gay movement. I mean, I put in the Village People here, and the culture was just really gay in the 70s in general. Like disco, for instance. I like disco, but like you look at
mustaches and tight pants and
the aesthetics of it and the sound of it, like this sort of kitsch sound. I mean, you see these YouTubers, like, say, like ContraPoints, like they really use that sort of 70s aesthetic because it is sort of a gay golden age. But then we're moving on to the based 80s. Let's just do the next slide there.
I just had to Google to remember who ContraPoints is. I don't
know. It's
watch,
one like that trans.
I don't.
Trans
I remember. I don't watch BreadTube stuff. All right, the 80s.
So, okay, we're starting off strong here. So they're able to expand the hate speech laws. Like, this is like the rasism paragraph, and the racism paragraph is that, you know, they're sort of superimposing the kind of racism narrative onto the gays, so you can't be racist against gays.
The progressive stack. Yeah.
So they're just giving themselves more rights or more privileges. Like this was just the goal the whole time. They just keep adding on more and more and more privileges for themselves. So you can't now you know, say anything that could, you know, endanger a person for being gay. And then, you know, the Department of Labor Inclusion, you know, that's what they're called now. It was just the social department, Socialdepartementet. That's what that organization was, and they removed it as a diagnosis because that's been, you know, they're a little bit behind.
Yes.
The first gay pride parade is happened in Norway. So, I mean, the gay pride stuff, the parade was originally something, you know, it's supposed to be like a solidarity thing with the Stonewall riots, and that's something I didn't include that here, but for the people who are interested, you could look at the sort of Stonewall protests and the organizations that's come from it. But, you know, the pride stuff was also like this, kind of started as this more academic or thing. Like you have the Arendalsuka, like this sort of politics week, where they will just invite people to do debates and lectures, and people just talk about these different like gay things there. So that's how that started. But like you see, it kind of stops after 1982 because because of the AIDS. Basically, right. I mean, this is like I've written here. This is basically an optics nightmare for this movement.
Yeah, it's a slap in the face, definitely, and you can't talk your way out of this one.
No,
really.
I mean, you think how scared people have been now for this disease in the last 2 years. That's like this kind of. Yes. You know, coughing and, you know, getting a throat infection or something. I mean, AIDS is like really serious stuff. I'm putting GRID in there. I don't know if you knew that, but it's like the original name for AIDS.
Yeah, it's
gay-related immunity, immune deficiency. So the I mean, this is why I think a lot of people, you know, they look at the 80s and they think the 80s was based, like with Ronald Reagan and that kind of stuff, that he actually did something to push back on the gay movement. And I mean, Ronald Reagan is really kind of a turd. I mean, I'm sorry to say that for the people in the chat. I think people are more red pill on that than they are in this sort of PDK circles. But he didn't do anything to actually stop these types of socially liberal movements. I really believe that it was the AIDS epidemic, and there was no cures for it. So they had to basically like it stopped the entire program. And I mean, we're really talking about like a disease here with like almost like 100% chance of dying from it. So I have the picture there. It's from Philadelphia in the top right corner with Tom Hanks. I mean, they tried to do some optic stuff with it later, like how can we make people feel sympathy for gay people, and they're going through all these tribulations, but the general sentiment and what apparently happened there was that
I mean, they
people
spun
went
it
back.
in the boomer truth frame, right? Where,
Yes.
in a sense, Nordanon writes that AIDS was divine punishment, but in a sense, that's the way they spin it, because they spin it in the boomer truth frame by saying that these people are just trying to be themselves, and then they get punished for it.
Yeah.
And he was just trying to be himself, man.
He was just trying to be himself. There's all these poor people, and everybody gets this stuff. And of course, it wasn't true. I mean, they were just they were really going hard on the culture now. They felt emboldened, and they were just like this extremely promiscuous standard fuck party culture. Nature comes to clean it up, right? Sorry to say, but like this sort of, you can't do all these kind of like unnatural sexual behaviors without some.
This could have happened even if it was heterosexual.
Yes, if they were living the same way, of course. Yes. And if they were having the same types of sex that these people are having, this would have happened to them as well. But I mean, this is sort of okay. This was kind of a stop. This was like nature's way of stopping it. But we're getting into the 90s now, where the technology comes to the rescue. And this is a theme that I see, when I think of the West, and I think of the global American empire and the post open society. That is kind of the theme that I see here. It's like this combination of technology and degeneracy that go hand in hand. Where
it's gay space communism, isn't that? Speaking of bread tube, isn't that what they want?
Where one thing just keeps enforcing the other thing, to the point where like that I come back to it, but it's this kind of narrative that they have now that this gay stuff, it's a little bit annoying. At least feminists are a little bit annoying, but that's the price we have to pay for technology. I mean, I don't know what to make of it.
It's
the 80s, not as base as you think, but I mean, this stuff was just terrifying. You talk about like fungal infections. They're having all of these sort of weird type of infections where you go blind, and then you go deaf, and then you like have stuff growing out of your ears. And I remember like I have my uncles and aunts who worked in Oslo, like at these hospitals with these AIDS patients. They have a lot of horror stories about what was going on there. So let's move on to the next slide.
Yes. The 90s.
90s, yeah.
Oh boy.
So for the people who don't know, like the top left picture, that's Judith Butler there. So in the beginning, like now we've cured AIDS. We've not cured it, but we've found ways to live with AIDS, and it's not a death sentence anymore. It's been destigmatized, and the train just keeps rolling. So the parade is expanded now to 10 days. Judith Butler releases Gender Trouble. Like, that's not something that I want to emphasize too much, because like you've had so many talks from people like Jordan Peterson who'll sit and I want to talk about the Foucault and Derrida and the postmodernist and this yada 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 stuff. You probably heard this 1,000 times if you've been in this space for a while. But I think Judith Butler puts out this book that's called Gender Trouble. You could click on it. We should look at the Wikipedia article for it.
Sorry, I was muted. Do you want me to open the Gender Trouble?
Yeah, open Gender Trouble. Like, this book is basically like the software update for this movement, where she just puts forward this kind of dialectic tool where she's saying that, well, we've made a lot of progress with this LGBTQ movement, but like by accepting like the gender binary, by accepting that like you have biological sex of men and women, and going into that frame, we're essentially accepting the like quote unquote heteronormative frame, and that's very limiting. So that it really limits what we can do, and it really limits how far we can take how far can we take feminism? How far can we take this gay rights project when we keep just sticking to like the old gender norms? So she'll criticize feminism, basically say that, all this sort of old first generation feminist stuff, it's not cut out for.
It's a critique of feminism from an even more past perspective.
Yeah, it's even more past, to the point where it's like we're starting to just remove gender from nature. Like gender has then nothing to do with physical sizes. It had nothing to do with physical characteristics or anything. It's just whatever, like it's just this completely fluid thing that we can change, just like we change linguistics. And we need to, like, that's the kind of software update they're running on. And when you see, like we talked about in the intro, the association free, and when they're talking, they're going to these kindergartens with the pink competency, like this is the stuff they're teaching. This kind of completely liquid idea of gender, where gender is whatever you want gender to be. You can just it is sort of a human right to be able to say that you are whatever gender you want to be, and you should be able to have your pronouns respected and so forth. And so there's untouched ground here. There's so much that they can grab in terms of power by just adopting this narrative over the old one. So that's what they're doing, and it creates some friction with the old guard, like you're seeing with the TERFs and the J.K. Rowlings and all of this nonsense. But this is something that that has allowed them to go even further with this stuff. So if you go back to the presentation,
this is one of the, like, if you take, I don't know, if you take like a feminist course, or if you look at like seminal theories for like modern quote unquote feminism, this is part of it. This is probably one of the books that Sargon has spent a lot of time reading to understand their thinking, so to speak.
Yes, for those of you wondering, like the Judith Butler early life is exactly what you think it is. So I'm not going to say any more on that. Yeah. So in 1993, you get like the partnerships law. That's like partnerskapsloven. That is basically you can enter these kind of gay partnerships that have all of the rights that a married couple will have, except one. You know what that is, Walrus?
All of the partners, all of the configuration. Is that what you're asking me?
No, they have, like, you know what the difference is between gay marriage and the partnership arrangement?
I don't know what it is now.
No, I'll tell you. Don't make me tap the sign. That's the that's the hint here.
It's probably
don't make me tap the sign.
All right,
it's kids, basically. That's the difference. Like in 1993, they had all the rights that a married couple had. They have all the tax advantages. It's basically everything, but it wasn't enough. They wanted to get their hands on children, and that's what the gay marriage. That's what it was about in Norway, at least. That it's not mentioned in the debates. It's framed completely differently. It's framed to the point where they're not talking about that stuff, but like that is what they're actually gaining. They want the ability to adopt children and to use surrogacy. So,
but that wasn't part of the 1993. Is that what you're saying?
No, that wasn't in the 1993 law. They had everything except the ability to adopt, but they get that later as well.
I understood, because that was what I was trying to say, that right as it is now, I don't think there is any difference.
No. So in 1998, they're basically added as a sort of, they're protected at work. This is like even more rights, even more stuff that they're you have to kind of respect that. And like, this is the last point, like, is this the tipping point? If you talk to someone like I don't want to pick on Sargon, but like say someone like Joe Rogan or something, or Brett Weinstein, like I wondered if, like, is this the point that they feel like, okay, now we've reached peak equality, like now we're good, basically, and everything after this is the
is this Fresh Prince?
Yeah, I think this is the Fresh Prince. I think this is the kind of like peak 90s liberalism, like real. Now we've reached it. Now we reached the real liberalism.
Yeah.
Okay, move on. So
and I mean, essentially that's what it is. Like this, all of this trans stuff right now is just just be yourself, man, taken to the extreme. Really.
Yeah, I mean, it is. They are basically trying to, they have gained as much ground in terms of rights for this community as they could from this like standard hetero model. But now,
Yeah.
like they need to go into like a different mode.
We have
They
to
need to have a different framing where they can gain even more ground.
have to go
And that's
further
why
beyond.
I believe,
Yeah.
you know, this where this kind of like queer theory comes in, where you just break the genders down and you get even more.
Yeah, you get into
Right side of that.
intersectionality, because then you can start talking about all kinds of weird stuff and get all kinds of weird rights, you know, because
Yeah.
we need a specific new law for, you know.
So you still have the old rights that are based on this kind of binary gender perception. You still have that, and you get even more stuff now with the with the fluid genders.
Yes.
Yep. But
All
yeah,
right, next one.
let's keep going to the next frame here. So like this frame is
2000s.
like I'm not sure if I even fit everything in here, because now it's like going into high gear.
Yeah, the rocket boots are on now.
The rocket boots are on. I mean, there's the picture there. I hate this decade. I just hate this decade with a passion. We have the king. I won't say that. Not gonna say the word, but we have the we've got President Obama here and the Lady Gaga. So I mentioned this on the Rank Punditry stream with the Yogyakarta principles. I guess you could. If you look up the link, that is basically the principle 31, because I think that's
I got that.
We could just go straight to it, and I'll just explain the Yogyakarta principles for the people who are not
this is the Yogyakarta stuff is like, I mean, you can explain it probably better than me, but as like a quick one is very good at like showing how the cathedral functions to some. If you're going to explain how the cathedral functions to someone who is not in the know about this, and you don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, basically use the Yogyakarta thing, because it's very obvious that they, you know, basically hand out their packets, and then Free just kind of does whatever it says in that packet every year.
Yep. So, well, I mean, the Yogyakarta principles is just a document of human rights that is drafted by international human rights lawyers commissioned by the UN. And this is not something that the UN has, that the UN has brought up directly as a type of, like, they're not bringing that up in the meetings, because you have a lot of countries in the UN, in the Middle East, in Africa, that are just completely opposed to any of this gay stuff. So they've had this commissioned as a type of document to be kind of an extension or a sort of expansion pack to the original human rights. That's the best way I can explain it. Expansion pack to the original human rights that is supposed to give a new interpretation of the Human Rights Declaration that is more inclusive to LGBTQ, trans, especially like this kind of transgender fluid stuff. Like this is now in the queer theory lens.
Yeah, it's wholly in the like post.
So here you have. I mean, if you want to read the right to legal recognition.
Yes,
paragraph.
I can read the entire page.
Yeah.
Everyone has the right to legal recognition without reference to or requiring assignment of disclosure of sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or sex characteristics. Everyone has the right to obtain identity documents, including birth certificates, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or sex characteristics. Everyone has the right to change gendered information in such documents while gendered information is included in them. States shall, A, ensure that official identity documents only include personal information that is relevant, reasonable, and necessary as required by the law for a legitimate purpose, and thereby end the registration of the sex and gender of the person in identity documents such as birth certificates, identification cards, passports, driver licenses, and as part of their legal personality. B. Ensure access to a quick, transparent, and accessible mechanism to change names, including to gender-neutral names based on the self-determination of the person. C. While sex or gender continues to be registered, 1. Ensure a quick, transparent, and accessible mechanism that legally recognizes and affirms each person's self-defined gender identity. 2. Make available a multiplicity of gender marker options. Is this all of the like 72 different gender
Yes,
markings.
this is where
Yeah.
it comes from. By the way, if you want to see like the source, like the Bible of this stuff, like it's here.
Three.
So yeah,
Sorry.
go on.
3. Ensure that no eligibility criteria, such as medical or psychological interventions, a psychomedical diagnosis, minimum or maximum age, economic status, health, marital or parental status, or any other third-party opinion shall be a prerequisite to change one's name, legal sex, or gender. Ensure that a person's criminal record, immigration status, or other status is not used to prevent a change of name, legal sex, or gender.
Yeah, so there you have it. Like it is, there are a lot of these principles that come off as very boilerplate, but it is this one principle in particular that it basically says that you have the right to be whatever you say you are, and
Yeah,
it
it's
is
just do whatever, man.
the government basically has to provide infrastructure to be able to, for you to, you wake up in the morning and you say that today I'm a woman or I'm a unicorn or I'm basically whatever, and it's the
Government
government's
has
job
to.
then to legitimately recognize that and put that in your passport and put
And
that in
enforce
all your
it, by
legal
the way,
document and
because that's
enforce
the
it
way it
and
works.
make everybody respect it. And there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. It's almost like with salvation. There's nothing you can do to stop the government from allowing you to do that. Even if you've you committed genocide, you're still going to be allowed by your government to change sex. And sorry, to change gender, even if you don't have surgery or anything. So this is one of these rights that they have. Like, you should always just have the right to be whatever you say you are. You have another one of these rights as well that is basically like every government has to provide a comprehensive infrastructure to offer health services to these sort of like gender neutral, like these sort of trans people. I mean, it's sort of in terms of not just surgery, like like this kind of like gender affirming surgery or like this gender transition surgery, but also psychological services, guidance, counseling, hormone therapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are like the two main things. A lot of these other rights, they come off as a little bit boilerplatey and duplicating some of the stuff that's in the original Human Rights Declaration.
But it's like a legal document, so I guess you need to, need to have some of the boilerplate to get to the end point, which is this one.
Yeah, just to really like get a little bit of a closer look, so the audience understands, like, okay, where does this stuff come from? I would say like this is the closest you can get to sort of source to like all this sort of insanity that is going on in the bureaucracies, is that this document is being referred to as like this guidance document for creating new laws regarding all of this kind of gender queer, everything that's related to gender, sex, anything
because
like that. This is
the way
this
this works, right?
principle.
Is you have these NGOs, and I've worked with some of them on the software side. They all base their job on these kinds of documents, right? They use the what's the United Nations, they have all of these like for the global warming stuff and the climate change or whatever it is. They have all of these like markers with different colors nowadays that like a business can put on their website. I don't know if you've seen it.
The goals,
I don't sustainable, whatever.
Sustainability.
So it's these kind of documents, right? That these NGOs reference, and then they contact other organs, either private companies or, in the case that we've been talking about, teachers or schools, right? And they're like, hey, we can teach the kids about this, and it's part of the UN Yogyakarta principles, blah, 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 blah. And then the teacher is like, oh, well, we want to adhere to the law. So, and then it gets up and in front of your 3-year-old, and that's how the cathedral works, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
so again, this is very good if you want to show a real-life example of how this flows to someone who doesn't understand it without sounding crazy.
It's almost at a point where it's hard to explain this stuff without sounding crazy as well. I mean, at least you can show them the documents,
right?
But if you just explain it without actually showing them any documents, I think they would still think you were a little bit of a nut, honestly.
Sure.
it's a tough thing, but I mean, it's no joke. It's right here. It's very real.
Yeah, it is very real. And as I said, every year or whatever, when these things update, organizations like Free update their policies to be in line with that. Yeah. And then they go and talk to the teachers, and that's what they put in front of your kids.
Yeah, so that's yeah, like you talked about with your job, with my job as well. I mean, I do work with sort of software development, and we have users that are registered, and we keep getting these requests for people who do like have their genders changed. So they have their genders changed. That means that like the Norwegian, social security number has basically two numbers that assign what
Indicates
gender you
gender.
are, right?
Yeah.
And so they have to have you have to run a lot of jobs to sort of update the databases, and they have to have all their data changed. And yeah, well, it keeps piling on. It's just more and more of the stuff that I see coming in. But if we get back to the presentation, I can speak more on it
Yes. Sorry.
later.
So 2000s.
It's so much to go into here. I mean, if you click on the UDHR article, because that's the original human rights declaration. I wasn't, I'm not too familiar with it. I've always known about it, but you have some articles in there that include stuff like property ownership, free speech, freedom of thought, and I don't mean like e-thoughts. I mean like actually thinking. Samvittighetsfrihet, as it is known in Norwegian.
Freedom of morality, basically.
Yeah, if you just like Control F18 or something, then you'll find the paragraph. And these articles are a lot smaller. If you'll just read that one out loud.
Again, I will stress that a human right is a human privilege. The only reason that the UN can declare these is because every government that follows them are basically able and willing to either pay or enforce them. So these aren't something you were born with. I just keep hammering that because it's one of those insidious.
It's very insidious, and it's also a sort of thing where you see that once you start giving out all these sort of positive privileges, people just want more and more and more, and it becomes this race to just keep securing more of these rights at the cost of actual freedom.
Yes, and you often encounter the argument that, well, they just want basic human rights, and that's a very effective counter to
it. They're not very basic anymore, Toto.
Well, but you can counter it by saying, well, you don't want rights, you want privileges, and I'm not willing to pay for it. And then you keep it inside the discourse and still sort of refute that argument. If it was up to me, I would probably do it on moral grounds, but then they get mad and send the government after you. So,
yep.
Okay, let's read the article. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes the freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. And imagine for a second the Christians in their schools being allowed to skip the trans education stuff.
No, but I mean, now we got a problem, Houston, because this is put in the human rights. This is a human rights article that basically says, well, you're allowed to practice your religion. You're allowed to say no to things you don't agree with. And then you have another right that basically says you have to confirm my gender identity, bigot. You have to confirm this. Like it's no option. Like it's.
But I mean, in the end, you're going to be back to is like who's going to win the pause or the jihad. And
yeah, of course.
In the West, I think the new one
is the new one is of course going to win. Good luck bringing this stuff up. I mean, you've had it with the last 2 years with the lockdowns as well. Like people trying to point to these articles about the articles that are being broken by all these lockdown policies and the censorship and so on. They don't give a damn.
Matter. No, that's also serve because it's a privilege. Ends. The government can take it away whenever they want. You're not born with it. And as you said, it's not been a thing for the past 2 years, which should tell everyone how fake it is.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to show here. It's that these Yogyakarta privileges, they basically step over the other privileges, and that's the sort of bullshit that you're going to hear from a lot of these progressives as well. Rights are not. It's not a pie. It's not a zero-sum game. Rights are for everybody, but it's
not
it's the
like
exact opposite.
If I get this, I'm taking from yours, which
you are.
It literally is. Because I have to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, like with you can have like freedom of speech, or you could have like this kind of racism and hate speech laws. If I can't say these things that count as hate speech, then I don't have freedom of speech. So you are literally taking away
Yeah.
things. I mean, if I want to practice a religion that says that only men can be priests and you shouldn't be gay, then I mean, and you're saying that I have to affirm gender identity and have like trans kids in my organization. Well, it is a pie. Then you are just taking my privileges away.
Or if you want to be a trans person and you want to do gender confirming surgery, because I'm not allowed to say what I really want to say, I have to pay for it, which is also stupid. But I would, rather have the freedom of association, which is the real right here, or a freedom or a negative right, which is one of those you should be born with in theory, if you follow more classical libertarian thought, in which I can say no to this stuff. As you said, I can make my own religion and have my own values, and you're not allowed to infringe upon them through the power of the government. But obviously that doesn't work in a democracy.
Nope. So we're moving on here, like LLH. This is what the Association of 1948 is called now. It's like the Association of Lesbian and Homosexuals. So they haven't become the Association Free yet, and now they decide to include transsexualism. It's the same year that the Yoga Carta principles are. So it's very coordinated, this stuff. Feminism is basically rejected. Queer theory comes in, and Pink Competency comes in here. I mean, you don't have to follow the link, but this is just like from Free's websites. They say that we've been doing like Pink Competency in education since 2006. And I'm basically in like high school at this point, so I didn't see too much of this stuff as I can remember. But I don't know.
I was probably in mid to late middle school in 2006. So I don't think I got any of that either. Usually these things, like, they take like, they introduce Pink Competency, but it takes like probably 5 years before it like shows up in actual education, because they usually start it at like an arbitrary date, and they don't like retroactively apply it to kids who are already in the school.
Yep.
So I'm sure like people who are 5 years younger than me probably had all of this, but I didn't.
Nope. So then
I saw there were some Zoomers in the chat. They might know more.
Yeah, tell us your stories. Let's see. So it's 2008. So now Lady Gaga and Obama, through their powers combined, legalized gay marriage against the will of the people for the betterment of all of humankind.
It's the Supreme Court, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really the Supreme Court. But it was put forth as a big thing, a big deal.
Oh yeah.
In 2008, it's not a big deal. This is a victory lap for this movement at this point. It's just a total it's just window dressing. It's so small compared to everything else they've done that it was just a question of time before they pushed this through.
I remember I wasn't very political in that sense. As I said, this is 2008, would then be probably early high school for me. But I do remember it being a thing here and also in the US, of course. And the argument, weirdly enough, looking back at it, is sort of, well, we have everything else. Why won't you just let us get married as well? We're already equal, so just let us get married, which, looking back at it, sounds very strange.
So let us get married. They actually mean let us have the kids.
Yes.
We want access to the kids, and that was never discussed in these debates. That's the funny thing about it. Like, that's the right they're actually getting, and it's just portrayed like, oh well, they just want to live. That's when you get to the arguments that were used here, because you get back to this sort of chutzpah and the sneakiness of these campaigns here, where they'll, on one side they'll just go, oh well, we just want to strengthen marriage, we just want to strengthen the institution. We're going to bring in all these these gay men who are just born gay, and they want to be a part of
based homosexuals are here.
Based homosexuals, and they want to be a part of the this monogamous tradition and just be monogamous their whole life and honor God. And that's one of the arguments to get like these hardliners on board. And then there's a naturalism where it's like, well, they're just born like that. We're just animals. like the Bloodhound Gang. Yeah, you and me,
Bloodhound
baby,
Gang,
we're
yeah.
nothing but mammals.
Mammals,
So let's do
yeah.
it like we do on the Discovery Channel. Let's
Yeah.
so they're just going all over the place with, you know, well, we strengthen that, and you know, it's monkeys are gay or whatever, and there's some fish apparently that are gay, like, so you have
Yeah,
to
and
accept it.
the seahorse changes
Yeah.
gender when they give birth, so you have to let
we'll
me
get
chop
to
off
that.
my
We'll get to that one. Yep.
appendages. Yeah.
That's what it means. Yeah. But that's the. I mean, what about the kids? That's that's really what's missed here, because after this is made legal, they get the full rights of adoption. I didn't include it. I had to remove it here because they in earlier, like in I think in 2003, they expanded the law with the Norwegian partnerships so that they could adopt, like, say, let's say if I had a child with my wife, and I divorce my wife and I get custody of the child and I marry Walrus, then Walrus is able to then adopt my wife's son as like his child as well. So that's what they put in like I think in 2002, 2003. But then they basically they scrapped it again because they just gave them full rights to adopt as like a fully gay couple. And I mean, the result of that is then a very rampant use of surrogacy in Norway. And surrogacy is illegal in Norway, but it's not. They don't actually enforce people who go abroad.
No,
to
that's
other
the way
countries
you
that
do
allow
it.
Yeah.
If you want to do it in Norway, you go to like Denmark and you do it there, and you come back.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could get to the sperm bank there, but I think surrogacy is a little bit harder. You know, I've seen, you know, people go to the Baltic states, like
Oh, yeah,
you
sorry, I
go to
was
like
thinking about
like Slovakia or something,
Yep.
or you would go to India, because
Yeah, India is a
that's the
popular
cheap
one.
alternative, because it's quite expensive even if you go to some of these Baltic states. But they would go to India then and then just use a kind of surrogate to carry their child and bring the child back into the country.
Yep.
And there's a lot of issues then with paperwork in terms of ownership. But I mean, they're doing this. A lot of these gay couples are doing this. And I get back to now the book by the Normløs by Kjell Skartveit, where he talks a lot about this stuff about, well, what about the rights of the mother to say, I mean, does the mother who actually carried this baby forth have no right to the child? If she's like the biological mother, just basically has no rights to the actual child. And no, that's the new precedent. You actually don't. The biology now just has nothing to do with the status of being a parent. So the legal and the physical has just completely spun off into two different
The
spheres.
child is just an entity of the state
it's just
now.
an entity of the state. And well, anybody could just be anybody. I see. I can't really just see if I can see the last point there. I mean, like how many dads do you have and how many moms do you have? I go back to the book again because he goes through a lot of these cases. I can't reiterate them in my mind, but he talks about all these sort of absurd cases that you end up running into where you could have like 5 mothers and 5 dads, and like you could have the mom who gave the egg, and another mom who gave another sort of part of that material that's needed to give birth to the child, and then the mother who actually had the baby in the womb and carried it forth, and then you could have like a co-mother who's a lesbian. Like, it's just created a complete and total like mess disaster out of these categories and how to apply it, and it's just so much extra paperwork for, like, say you're dealing with inheritance or other types of deals like divorces, like who gets the rights to the children, because there's so many mothers, there's so many dads, and there's no consensus as to who's actually the legitimate father and legitimate mother of these kids. I mean, are you familiar with anyone who's used these types of solutions, Walrus? Like
No,
who's used surrogacy or anything?
I was gonna say thankfully. I'm not. The few people I know aren't interested in doing that, because they usually see it as you said, like quite a bit of a mess, and not a good way of actually bringing children into the world.
Yeah, and no, I think this is more actually for like the Oslo sphere of like these sort of like high
Yeah, it sounds
agency,
very like that, and I've seen some
very sort
news
of like,
reports about
say
like
like these
strange polygamous. Sorry.
strange polygamous relationships. So you have like these two, say you have like two gay men with high income, like that's sort of what you have to do if you're gonna do this kind of surrogacy process, because there's so much money that goes into it. I think it's like
Yeah.
if you go to the Baltic states, it's like 1 million Norwegian kroners minimum that you're gonna have to spend to bring the kid home back with you. So you have to have a lot of money and the will to go through with it. So that is sort of like one of the bottlenecks for people. But yeah, I think it is more like this sort of Oslo high agency homo thing. We can move on to the next slide now.
Yes.
So I just wanted to show this really quickly. If you click on the link here, so here we can just see the life cycle of how a law gets passed in Norway and where like the Yogia Karta principles come into it. So you do hear talk about the Economist Democracy Index, where Norway scores really highly on like transparent democracy, and I mean to some sense you could see that because it's very easy to access these laws if you're patient enough to read through it. Do you think you could open that PDF document without freezing the computer? Let's see, because it's quite big. Let's see. I mean, did you get the PDF there? No, just try to go back. So I think there's a PDF format document there.
Sorry.
And this is huge. I mean, if you just try to look at the sidebar there, how many pages?
Oh, wow, yeah.
So
Okay.
we're not going to go through it, but just Control F and just type in YOG, like as in Yogia. See if you can find the.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. So here they're using, this is basically the
Norway
report they're
supports the
giving.
Yogia Karta principles from 2006. Yeah.
So here they're using that to sort of justify these new laws that they're going to pass. And if you don't we don't need to read through it. If you just go back to the website again, you could look at like the hyperlink that says follow follow the proposition to the Storting. It's down, yeah, there.
There it is.
And so here you can see like there, you could follow the entire life cycle of from the proposition to becoming an actual law. So it says, so you have the bill and the proceedings, first treatment, second treatment, and then it becomes a law. So, I mean, for the nerds in the audience, this would probably be interesting to look at if you are interested in politics. But you can sort of see the entire like back and forth in the Storting when these laws are being passed.
Interesting.
Yep. We don't have to look that much more at it.
No, that's very detailed, but yeah, it's
I wanted
nice
to just
know
give
that
a
it's,
concrete example of how this actually looks in practice. Yeah, because there's like I said, there's way too many of these videos on this topic in our sphere where they just go back to talking about Derrida, like postmodernist, all this very theoretical stuff.
The philosophical source is very well documented.
That's interesting and all, but let's take a look at the actual, how the sausage is made in the factory.
Yeah, because it doesn't follow directly that the philosophy is thought up or created and then it's passed into law.
I mean, let's say you're gonna try to do a
go
debate
through something.
You try to debate someone like Vosh or Destiny or something like that, or have a discussion like I don't want to debate those people, but say you probably know someone like that. And if you bring this up, they're of course going to say something like, well, that's only have these quotes and all this sort of philosophical writings, but it doesn't prove that there's an actual correlation. Well, this proves it.
Yeah.
This proves all of it. I could just I showed you like the entire sausage factory here of where the principles are from and how they're actually being used in legislation.
Yeah, it's from the Yogia Karta and it's in the legal official documents of how the law was made.
look at all of them, and it's used as like that's the foundation. That's what they go back to, is that, well, we have to do this because this is in accordance with the Yogyakarta principles.
Yeah, and we support the UN, of course.
We sure do. So I can move on.
Here it is.
I just wanted to make this slide with him. I mean, in retrospect, he's not that important, but let's just poke a little bit of fun at him there. I sort of gave him the title of like the sovereign Koof Gaylord, because he's been like the de facto prime minister. When we talk about this Carl Schmitt theory, where the sovereign is he who makes the exception, or he who takes power in the crisis. And
yeah,
from the look of it in Norway, like it seems like, at least from the media, that he is like the guy that they've defaulted to. I mean, do you want to watch the clip? Because you have one of these, like it doesn't have anything to do with like the gay stuff directly, but you have one of these most famous TV appearances where where he's being basically pushed by one of these interviewers, where they talk about mask mandates, and that there's like no scientific evidence that masks work.
Oh, this was like back in the day when masks didn't work.
He basically tells like, shut the fuck up, like this is the law, like this is this comes straight from the Ministry of Health, and I don't want you to contradicting this, so shut the fuck up. No, don't ask me. I mean, do you want to bring the link up, or do you think?
We can try. It's probably in Norwegian, so I'm gonna.
It's in Norwegian, but
it's gonna be.
We'll just have to translate
for us,
on the fly.
We can translate the contents probably. Yep. Okay, I will see if I can get this to play. Remove this and share screen with audio. Which one is it? This one with audio. Let me know in the chat if you can hear the audio. Also tell me, Ludwig, if you can hear it.
I can hear it.
Påbud om munnbind. Først var det på offentlig transport. Nå gjelder det også innendørs på offentlige steder. Fra mars og gjennom sommeren har ikke FHI anbefalt dette. FHI sier faktisk det svakt vitenskapelig grunnlag for å anbefale munnbind. De har gått gjennom over 500 forskningsartikler og lener seg hovedsakelig på 2 kunnskapsoppsummeringer. Den ene sier at effekten av munnbind kan være en 6% smittereduksjon. Den andre 44%, men ingen av dem dreier seg om covid-19. En dansk studie blant 6000 dansker som ennå ikke er publisert, fordi ingen av tidsgruppene tør å publisere den, antyder, sier medforsker Thomas Lars Benfield, antyder at det faktisk ikke har noen effekt. Det er en kontroversiell undersøkelse. Bør ikke slike inngripende tiltak som det å påby folk å klistre noe i ansiktet?
Right, so he basically cites a bunch of studies saying that masks don't work, is basically what he's doing here. This is the interviewer here. He's asking, shouldn't these kind of measures be scientifically based if we're gonna, start requiring masks?
Bør ikke de være vitenskapelig fundert?
Derfor har også FHI vært klare. Jeg er enig i at innledningsvis i mars så var det en debatt om nødvendigheten av munnbind. Nå er jo anbefalingene fra helsemyndighetene tydelige på at munnbind, hvor det ikke er mulig å holde avstand under 1 meter, absolutt noe som vil redusere smitten. Og vi ser nå, det er ikke bare på kollektivtrafikk, vi ser på kjøpesentre, trengselen, så vi tror at alle tiltak nå, ta i et tak en periode for å redusere smitten, vil være veldig viktig.
Det kan hende vi tar en ny runde om...
Ja, men det er veldig viktig for meg å understreke.
So this guy says that, well, this was a debate back when Corona arrived, and now it's not anymore. Suddenly you've like the public health bureau has done a 180 on it. So what's up, basically?
Yep. But he tries to go with like the politician, the optical answer here, and just say that well, that we've changed, so we're not debating it anymore, and there's a lot of tight spaces. We have We have the shopping centers, we have the buses, and we have to do everything that we can. We have to cooperate. And it's a great answer as a politician. Just that, just take the focus away from the studies and just say we have to cooperate and do everything we can to do that. And like this would have been pretty good optically. But like now like Bent Høie, this other guy's gonna like he's gotten the taste of power now, and he's gonna really try to just go with this kind of
been running the
almost
country for half a year.
He's been running the country now, so he wants to just shut this guy up. So let's see.
Folk kan få et annet inntrykk, men jeg hørte på deg nå. Folkehelseinstituttet har anbefalt alle de munnbindrådene og reglene som gjelder i Oslo.
Det sier det er svagt vitenskapelig grunnlag.
Folkehelseinstituttet har jo tatt det.
Du kan ikke skape usikkerhet om dette. Dette er alvorlige spørsmål.
Ja.
Folkehelseinstituttet står bak alle munnbindreglene i.
This is very interesting. He said that the Institute of Public Health is backing all of these claims or all of these rules when it comes to masks for Oslo, basically. And the interviewer tries to say, well, but they're not scientifically based on anything. And then he just slams back with the same, no, but we're backing this 100%. Shut up.
Yeah, you shut up, and you're creating insecurity, and you're creating chaos by suggesting anything else. So he just keeps putting him back in a line, just keeps hammering him. And like, I mean, just to understand this stuff, the interviewer here it's actually very good. And I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, based Asian guy, but he's quite assertive as an interviewer, and he has been able to run over a lot of Norwegian politicians.
The good and bad about him is that he's very good at like hunting for like gotcha moments, which is it's nice for calling people out, but it can get a bit tiresome when he's like looking. He's like digging for them to say something, but usually it works out. He's good at calling out politicians for like, you're not answering my question.
But now he's just being kind of shut down here, which is not it's not typical.
I Oslo, punktum.
Ja, men de sier det er svagt vitenskapelig grunnlag.
Men du må ikke skape inntrykk av at de reglene ikke er anbefalt til
Men du må ikke late som at forskere i hele verden er ens om at munnbind
er utrolig.
He said, don't create the impression that what was the line?
Ens om at munnbind
er utrolig viktig at du nå ikke skaper et inntrykk av at Folkehelseinstituttet ikke anbefaler.
Don't create the impression that the Institute of Public Health is not recommending these restrictions.
He's saying that you can't say
pretty way of
anything.
Saying shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck
you're
up.
endangering us all.
Just saying that there's like scientific. Just having the discussion is dangerous now because that undermines the power structure. So he's just being completely.
Which makes sense. I mean, if you want to do it, you want it to be. You don't want you want the message to be.
You want to do that, but this is the kind of conversation you want to have in the back room before you go in. Yeah, just to be optical for the people here who are just kind of in management or anything. Like you just do not want to do this in front of other people on television. But no, I think he was power feels good. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, and he's playing the angle technically of like, I'm doing this for public health. This is for your own good. I'm just trying to keep you safe, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's the sort of roundabout way on which he wields the power.
Yeah. So I mean, I thought, like I said, I thought this guy was going to be more of an active player in this game, but he's much more of just a politician. I thought it because he's gay. He's just openly gay, but the stuff that he pushed through as the Minister of Health was really just a result of being pushed by these lobby organizations. So the thing that he got through here, in accordance with the Yogya Karta principles, is that you can change your legal gender in Norway simply by applying for it. You do not have to modify, like you don't have to get gender reassignment surgery by just having like your nads and your pee chopped off or getting some hormones or anything like that. Do anything to look different. You can just be a regular schlub man with body hair, like balding, broad shoulders and a dress, and just send in a form Send in a form, and we'll change your legal gender for you. And he put that through. And after that, I mean, if you look at just if you go to that link that says like Jib Reparations PLS, I mean, you really talk about chutzpah there, because then all of these freaks that have been changing their gender previously with the old rules where they actually had to get gender reassignment surgery, they now want reparations, because if they had been able to do this, like change their gender legally without the surgery, then they would still be fertile. They want reparations for like deciding to chop off their nads when they could have just changed their gender by not doing it. So now, like, after they got what they wanted, they're starting to demand reparations for their own sterilization, basically. I mean, the fucking chutzpah, the insolence of these people.
Jesus.
Yeah,
and I'm sure the original surgery is probably taxpayer money anyway, right?
Yeah, but it's probably. I'm not sure, but it's like, oh yeah, this is like another Shoah, it's another genocide against these people. It is a human rights violation, at least according to the Yogyakarta principles it is, but not in any conventional understanding of what human rights mean, and not in any sane understanding of that. I think, I mean, we're getting to this point later, but I think it's I mean, within this sphere, to try to be nuanced, I think it's fair that if you want to legally become a woman, if you're a man, that you have to take a gender modification surgery to the point, like, you look at this person superficially, and it looks like, it could be like a weird woman, so then you could like be in the woman's locker room, or you could be in the woman's bathroom, because you don't have like a dick and balls swinging around there. But like, this changes that. And like, if you think I'm kidding, when you can go to the next slide here, just to see how this law comes in effect. I mean, this is the like Sandra here.
Even we're so far into the bullshit here that even trying to engage with it, sort of like you have to cede so much ground just to engage with.
Yeah, you have to cede so much ground. I agree. It's completely hopeless. Like, I don't. Okay, not to break the hate speech law, so I just bring the first name here. But I mean, if you look at the article here, it's an article from, like, I think Stavanger Aftenblad, where you have the first instance of this stuff, where like this person in the picture here is then, this is a biological male, basically, who is then using the female locker room, who then has used that law from 2016 to change their gender to female legally. And the story is basically, okay, this is basically a man with dick and balls who's running around in the women's locker room. The women don't like that. They don't feel safe, so they're complaining. And because they complained to the institution, like this person here, Sandra, is then filing a lawsuit. She's filing a lawsuit for discrimination because she's being discriminated against. She's insisting that, it's not like they're in these articles, they're talking about, oh, we'll bring in like a third locker room. We'll do that for you. We'll get unisex. We'll bring in a third locker room. We're going to have locked spaces. No, like, this person just says explicitly, I want to be in the woman's locker room because I am a woman. Even though I still have like male genitalia, I am a woman. I'm going to be in the female locker room pronto. I do not want a third option. I want to be in the female locker room with my dick and balls hanging out, with like a half chubby standing in the shower, body hair on the ass, just standing there with women. And if you complain about that, you're discriminating, right? And of course, she then files the suit against these women, but the case is then abandoned because, like I said, there's no legal basis for.
There's no precedent for this.
There's no precedent for it yet. But that comes later, you see. So now the gauntlet has been thrown down. She's sort of been like, I think she was just doing this. I'm going to say she or he or whatever, but was doing this was just an activist type move. I wouldn't be surprised if like this was like a top down type thing, just try to provoke a conversation around this issue, just so they could push through another legislation to include basically gender identity as a protected category in hate speech. Because that's what comes in there. I talked about it on the Rank Punditry stream. If you click on the Yet link.
Yeah, I have it open here. Just a second. see here.
Yeah, so there we go. We have the hate speech
Can you
laws.
see it? It's being a bit weird.
It's being a little bit weird, but under category D, under protected
Yep, I see it
categories,
now.
it's
Yep.
sexual orientation. That was like the 70s, 80s. That's what they got in the 80s, right? And now we got the crown jewel here, point D, gender identity or gender expression, right? So they basically have like, okay, if you're denying me my gender, if I can't define what gender I am every morning I wake up and I become something different, and if you're going to deny that or really discriminate against me on the basis of that, then that's hate speech, and that's like 3 years in jail. It's like denying the Holocaust or whatever. And of course, you could go back to like these Machiavellians coming, like these sort of Vosh destiny types. Well, it's not been enforced. It's not, it's not being enforced, but that's not the point. Like, I mean, the original sodomy laws were never enforced, but this is setting a different precedent as to how people interact with each other and how people deal with these types of problems, like the Sandra woman in the shower, to the point they know that the precedent is that
from law.
It's downstream from law. So they basically got exactly what they wanted out of it. So if you just go back to the PowerPoint again, the picture I included in the bottom here is just a funny little detail, because this man or woman is a developer, right? So you could, if you want to hire like a front end developer,
autism, yeah.
but no, but I mean, if you search for the full name, you just get like the portfolio page, and I mean, this she has developed a lot of video games, and that's one of them, actually. So it's just a little fun detail that I threw in there. You could skip to the next slide.
Sorry, I was just busy looking at their games.
I don't know if you want to share that. I think that would be like
no, I'm not going to do that.
On like doxing.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to do that. It was one thing is a public article, but
yep. Okay, so now we're getting closer to where we are at right now. We have the 2020s hate speech against gender identity. That's what I showed in the link there. Punishable.
Sorry, that all said programmer socks moment.
Perfect. The pride flag is now made equal to the Norwegian flag. It's not a huge thing, but it is the sort of thing where, I mean, basically there was a law that said that if you're in a municipality, if you run a municipality and you're in municipal buildings, you can only fly either the Norwegian flag or the Sami flag. But then a lot of these municipalities just started flying the rainbow flag, and people complained about it and say that, well, that's not legal. We didn't vote for this. That's not, what are you doing this? This is not legal.
Yeah, that's been a huge thing where I live.
Yeah, and then, well, they just changed the law.
Myself here, but
they just changed the law. So it's that simple. They bring up a case. Okay, well, we have this super powerful lobby. We'll just change the law. So they started the examination of adding the third gender. That's what we talked about on the rank punditry stream. The third, it was rejected, but then you see in 2022, they're bringing it up again. So that they're going to keep bringing the third gender up until they get it. Basically, that's what I predict. That at least by the end, if things keep going at this trajectory, then we're going to have a third gender by the end of by 2025. What do you think, Walrus?
I feel it's going to be sooner. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen. Well, I mean, we're in 2022, so 2025 is a good prediction. It might be a 2024 thing, but I mean, that's semantics. Within the next election, yeah, I think that's a good call.
I mean, and when it comes to this, the way the media treats this third gender stuff, you get the same propaganda pattern where it's like they just cover all the bases. They'll go with it's natural, bro. Like, this is the Aftenposten article where they, like you said, with the seahorses that change gender, or we'll look at all of these animals that are like unisex or whatever and change gender. And,
Yes, yes.
and because of that, then it's good for us to chop off our nads or whatever. And the other argument that's like, if you get like it's spiritual, bro argument, it's really Nettavisen, one of these articles that's sort of arguing from most this kind of Gnostic point of view that it's more to life than just naturalism, right? It's not just, you're not just born that way. You have a soul, and you have a soul that's different from your body. So you can't just say that there's two genders, because there's more to that.
It's about the expression of your soul.
Plato said that there's a world of forms, and like he's seriously using those.
What a way of misinterpreting Plato. All right.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like he's using this lot of like Augustine and like
using
Augustine. What was that
justify.
other? The guy who used that, sorry, it slips my mind right now, the famous theologian who sorry, it just slipped my the Augustine, the other famous theologian. Damn, do you remember who it is, Walrus?
I'm blanking.
Aquinas.
Yeah. Right?
So you're basically then using it like Aquinas and Plato and this like Descartes to make the argument that there's more to life than the natural world, and the natural world, so therefore trans women are women. Like that's where the author is going with that, completely ignoring what these people would have said. Like if they were alive, they would just fucking puke in his face for suggesting that this is a justification for gender reassignment surgery.
So he's basically pulling like a Hamlet on the what's the quote? There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than there are dreamt of in your philosophy, except it's so therefore you should let me do this.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much the argument. That's what they're going with. It's really the same thing, but people have not gotten any wiser to it. I wonder how much this actually works on people now. How many people are actually convinced by this stuff? It would be nice to have some stats. Yeah, yeah, of course, Nordan, but they don't care about that stuff because they're just relying on ignorance. And I feel like in Norway in particular, Norwegians in general, they're quite ignorant, and I don't mean that in a sort of like they're like dumb, they're not functionally intelligent, but there's a lot of stuff that they just don't want to think about. I don't know if that's your impression.
The Norwegian creature is pretty much it's mostly the just leave me alone person. It's I have my house, I have my property. As long as no one knocks at my door, I don't really care what happens and where my taxes go. That that's the and that allows for a weird like tacit acceptance of everything, but it also rears its head sometimes as a sort of light version of sort of the liberty loving that the Americans have. It's a strange phenomenon.
It is. It's just the general idea. I feel like a lot of these discussions, and that's why I like doing this show, because I feel like the bar is quite low. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I think like this presentation is more thorough as an sort of explanation and examination of this movement and how like we got to this point in Norway than anything you're gonna see from like Kjetil Rollnes, Espen Goffing. Like any of these people who are talking about this stuff in the media are like documented, and like none of them are going to be able to give you this. And I don't even think like this presentation is that good, but it's compared to like the general level here, it's just so low on these discussions.
I mean, it's I think it's a good presentation in the sense that
Oh, thank you.
You have been able to gather this information and present it well, but as you're saying. I think what you're trying to say is that the research you did, you haven't been gone for years trying to figure this out. This is,
No,
a
this
month
is like
of a month of
secondary,
reading, maybe at most,
secondary
right?
sources, just like
Yeah.
one book, and I just went through like the official material that's actually just on the publicly available websites. I didn't have to leave my chair to do anything. I didn't have to go through tax
Right.
records and go interview people. So
It's not hard,
No.
is my point. It's not that much work to actually dig into. Hang on a minute, what actually happened? But no one's doing it because society is, in a sense, constructed to not let you, but make you not want to, which is a more
Yeah,
powerful
like
force.
no attention, right? Just have no attention and not be able to do read, not be able to complete a book. They're just like looking at Ukraine, Russia stuff in the news, just being distracted by it. And I think that's the sort of important takeaway here as well. Like we could have just done like this news stream and sat and talked about Ukraine, but I think it's important to have like an agenda beyond just reacting to news.
This is Mongolian Doggerland, isn't it? He's just Russified his name, hasn't he? I think it is. Will it be available for download? Are you thinking about the presentation? Because I can probably, if you're okay with it, Ludwig, I can probably link it in the.
It's no problem at all. I mean, you can download all sort of YouTube videos that you want. If you have like VLC media player, you can actually download videos from YouTube.
Yeah, but I think he was interested in the links as well.
Oh, the links, right? Oh, the presentation. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can just make it available. It's no problem. I don't think it has any traces of. Maybe it does actually. It has some metadata, but whatever. It's not that incriminating, I think. But just to finish up, like the State Church LGBT tour, do you want to click on that link for a second so we can just?
Yeah, I'm gonna find it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the stuff that shows up in the newspapers. It is pretty blackpilling. It's basically like this apology tour where there seems to now be consent between all of the 12 bishops in Norway to just apologize. Like, we're just going to apologize to the gays for not marrying them. And, we changed our minds. We didn't know you had it so hard. We're gonna just release these statements about well, we misunderstood the situation, and like what's the point of this stuff? I'd like to be a fly on the wall here on some of these meetings to just see what's actually what are they even thinking?
Are they like actually trying to okay, either they're trying to like outcompete each other in like being progressive, or they're all like talking about, oh God, they got our nuts in a vice here. How are we gonna, we're like inches away from losing all our funding.
Yeah, we got the funding.
How are we gonna get out of this one?
Yeah, that's also very biblical. It's like just caring about selling out for money. Very biblical. I mean, it is like most of what I read in the Old Testament and the spirit of a lot of the stuff, and even some of the stuff Jesus said, is that if you have that mentality that you try to sell out your principles for money, you should just be beaten the shit out of and just have like a stone hang around your neck and just be thrown into the ocean. But like that seems to be that's usually what I think about. I don't remember the particular passage, but like Jesus has this thing where he says that if you mislead my children, you should just have like a stone, this kind of grindstone put around your neck, and they
I remember something like that.
It's like a mafia movie or something, and that's what I think about when I think I see a lot of these priests who will talk about this. That is Jesus a feminist speech? It's like you just have like a fucking stone around your neck. And in Minecraft, of course, in a play in Minecraft.
Yeah, of course. Take a stroll along the harbor with some new concrete shoes, as they say. Let's see here. I'm going to go back to the...
go back to the presentation. People can look at it if they like. And some of it's behind a paywall, unfortunately.
Yes.
But I mean, sometimes I will just pay like 1 kroner or 30 kroners just to get 1 month of free free article, so I could go look at the total state of it.
And I might be able to get some of them if you have specifics.
Yeah,
I can get them in like a PDF format or something. So if it's very,
let's see. I mean, if you could go to I think we're at the last slide now. So this is basically okay. Where do we go from here, right?
old pebble throw.
Yeah, but I really like these two. They turned out to be more prophetic than.
I mean, he never misses. So
it is like these two questions here. Like, okay, what's the future of this gay lobby? What's the next thing they're going to go for? Is it going to be like kids' rights to have relationships with adults? So they seem to be already going in that direction. Are they going to go with more of this kind of transhuman, rights for robots and stuff? Are they going to do with the dog fucking, or like, I don't know what the chat, how the chat feels about that. If we could have like a referendum on where they feel like that.
Are we going to have like are we going to have like a moment of the sex dolls are going to be introduced to the brothels, and then the feminists are going to require rights for the sex dolls or something?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think they already have that, but the feminists have been pushed under the bus on this one. I mean, this movement is basically like sex positive, even prostitution positive. Like they want like state-sponsored porn and
state-sponsored
all of this
porn.
kind of, I don't remember, but I did see that somewhere. I sorry, I don't have the source right now, but the argument was basically that, well, porn, like the porn you get on Pornhub or something, it's so extreme and it's so like this sort of male dominated stuff. So you have to have the state basically create like alternate porn that people are going to look at. That's going to be more humane and feminist and so on. So
the worst part is I can see that argument. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah, but that's where we are. I mean, that's the kind of frame we're working from. But okay, we're getting to what can we do about this stuff. I mean, the author like Kjell Skart, right, who did the book, he basically comes to this sort of like post-leftist exhaustion thing where he sort of imagines that in a certain amount of years, like people are just going to see that this stuff is dysfunctional. And it is dysfunctional, and they're just going to come to terms like this is so dysfunctional, and a lot of these leftist firebrands are just going to be really tired and burnt out on this kind of leftist hegemony. So there's going to be a kind of tapering off of that effect, and then maybe there's possible to do something else. In the meantime, I'm not super optimistic about this one. The other thing is that, okay, how can a new metapolitical narrative be created? The good thing about just going through this stuff the way we have done now is that it's easier to have this conversation with other people. Like you can talk to actual adults about this in terms of laws and rights. And you could actually say that I don't think that these rights should exist, or I think that these rights should be changed. You don't want to frame it as I think they should be rolled back. You say that, like this is a sort of logical contradiction, or this kind of gets in the way of my right to be myself, or like it almost like you get back to this libertarian angle where you want like actual freedom. You just want to change the laws to give you real freedom, because now it's
but if we're going to get to that point, I mean, to get to that point requires, I mean, revolution, really.
Yeah, it does.
I think,
but
or collapse.
Not too loud. I mean, that's the Kaiserism part of it.
Yeah,
But I think that there's going to be, I mean, opportunities for that. And I don't mean like, populism is great, but populism is kind of the answer to like this void that's being left by the elites now. And I feel like the more unpopular they get, and the more idiotic choices they're making, the greater the window is to come in with some kind of I mean, I'm just going to call it populist, but I do think about it more as a kind of Kaiserist, almost like a pirate ship coming into the shore and just taking it.
I think if the public exhaustion / populism is strong enough, then it doesn't, as Nordahl says, there will be no mass awakening without a revolution of elites. The mass, isn't going to care really.
No, the mass isn't going to care. I have no intention of any mass awakening. But like the thing is that I've gotten a little bit, a little optimistic on some points and pessimistic on other points. And I'm optimistic that I think it can actually be done, but I'm pessimistic in terms of like it's not going to be ideologically pure in any way. It will be just
Right.
like this kind of Kaiserist, say like Viktor Orban in Hungary. I mean,
Yes. I mean,
someone
it
like
has to
that.
be power
It,
politics.
it
It
is
has to
just
be
power, but someone
realpolitik.
like that, where people in our spheres, based, like he's totally based. But when like people on the left will say that like this guy's basically a thief and he's a kleptocrat, they're kind of right. And I'm sorry to disappoint people there, but like the model of like the people who have taken power there is that we're basically going to come in with an ideology, and that's we're going to have that. But the motivation for a lot of these people is that you're going to get these kind of high agency, high motivational people who just want to rule, and their motivations will usually be completely selfish, like
Yeah.
building a football stadium in your hometown or something like that. I mean, you're
Yeah,
just going
yeah.
to take like the EU money and build a football stadium next to my house, or build myself a cabin for like $100 million or something like that, and just there's going to be, that's probably going to be part of the picture. I'm sorry to say, but you're just going to have to bring on these kind of like high agency will to power people, and just say that when we take power, then you can just get this stuff. Like you just get to decide this stuff if you want, and you can just take some of this money for your own selfish ends here.
You gotta have your Bernies on your team. What was he endorsed what was he endorsed after he endorsed Clinton, he got, how much money did he get? A lot, at least.
Yeah, I mean the current elites, like the sort of global homo elites, they're still really powerful. But we need to just get other people who are just motivated. And I mean, the worse this gets, and I think about like the new energy policies in Norway actually creates an opening for that. If they're not willing to back down on it, if they're just going to keep the price of electricity high and they're just going to electrify everything, and okay, we're going to be part of this global network, that's it's less efficient and it costs more and it's more painful for everybody. So I mean, if you look at the guy, like the stone toss picture in the top left here, like this is like a lot of these kind of normies that have thought about politics a lot. When I've talked to some people in like the last week, I'm actually surprised that a lot of normies who are more knowledgeable, like this is what they're thinking right now. They've noticed a lot of these patterns, a lot of this gay stuff that's coming in, and they're not comfortable with it. But they are afraid, like with people like Trump and Orban, that these people lack competency. Like they're not competent enough to run the country. And even like people like Richard Spencer has said that. So
but I mean, if anything, we know that the people who are running the country now aren't competent enough.
They're not. They're failing. I mean, they are declining, but they're organized in a sense.
That's true. So we have to just present an alternative.
With someone like
really.
Trump, they're just working against him. He can't do shit. And that's what and that's what the normies are seeing, is that he's just hamstrung. He can't work with the system. And that just creates a lot of pain for them. So they just want like a smooth running machine. So they, it sucks. We know it sucks, but what are we going to do without the global homo superstate?
Yeah, right. And usually the solutions they will offer is, trying to improve the system that is already in place.
Make it go slower, right?
Well, effectively, right? But it's sort of they have been brought up in a managerial state, so their only solution is a managerial one, right? If only we can get this new, or my idea for how we can, optimize the tax laws, then everything will be fine, and that's not how it works. You have to realize that whatever we're doing right now isn't working.
It's not working, but like I come back to these energy laws. Like say in Norway, they're going to keep this electrifying nonsense, the windmills and this stuff going on, and they'll say, well, you can put in a new populist elite who's just going to clear them out. Well, what are we going to do about the electricity? Well, we just go back to using the goddamn oil. We have it. It's there in the ground. It's more efficient. It's cheaper for us. It's better for us. like what they've done is just pure idiocy. Like we have the resources right here.
And
It's
while
very
we're at it,
simple.
we can build nuclear energy. We have more
We can
than
build
enough place
nuclear energy.
to
We'll just
store it.
we can do like we have all this stuff that we're just sitting on that we're not using because of this kind of global homo supranational stuff.
And that's what
that the elites have to do.
My talks with this whole energy thing going on. For those listening in, Norway has been suffering from incredibly high energy prices for the past 2 weeks. I know a lot of other countries are having weird things going on. 2 weeks, I mean 2 months. Weird things going on with energy and the supply lines, etc. And the reason we're suffering is really because we have hooked ourselves into the European market, and we have sold a bunch of our energy this year, and now we have to buy it back at a premium, which makes the energy prices spike. And my argument all the way has been, this wouldn't happen if it weren't part of an international trading oligarchy. And as long as I keep hammering that, the people I've talked to can't get around it. Like, this wouldn't happen if but we have to. And you, as you said, but without the global homo superstate trading thing, how would we have energy? Well, we have more than enough ability. Like, technically, we're self-sufficient already with just the power we are already generating. Now, of course, having worked in the energy sector, I know that power fluctuates and you can't necessarily guarantee, like on paper, yes, we have enough energy, but we need enough energy at the time when we need it. But we have more than enough opportunity to get the energy we need for ourselves. The only reason we are having issues now is because we are hooked into an international system that is designed for the elites of these state-owned companies to make money. And
there's
the
no
reason
way
that
around
people
that.
are mad is because the ones who are picking up the bill this time is the average citizen. Like, I mean, if you want to be socialist about it, if it worked out the way that the energy companies basically paid back their surplus to the customers, right, or to the people, then nobody would be mad. But they're not, of course. They're pocketing the difference, and that's why people are upset, because the people have to pay.
Yes, and they haven't done a very good kind of PR job on it. They put a lot of effort into Corona, into this coof narrative.
But the only argument they have is, well, it's the market forces, and yeah, of course it is, but we chose to be a part of this market. You know, I know how economics works. That's not the problem.
They haven't,
or I guess that is the problem.
Yeah, they haven't primed people properly, so they're just getting it raw. They're not lubed up for this, and they're really noticing the pain on that. I mean, the lockdowns were more painful, but people were, a lot more propagandized to accept it. But with these like these gas things, they haven't really done any. They just did it. They went through the back door and they just put it in there. And okay, that's just how it is now.
I remember there was
you
a
didn't
debate.
want this. You didn't vote for it.
I remember there was a thing about, should we join this thing? And then it just happened, like last year or something, under the radar, as you said, of the COVID stuff.
And I think they can keep like doing more and more unpopular stuff under the radar, but at some point, people just gonna get really pissed, and there's gonna be a lot more anger, and that anger is fuel. That is something that you can draw on to actually try to create some type of revolt or find some new elite. I mean, you see more of it now. We're here speaking right now, and there are, like the AA sphere and a lot of these other spheres, a lot more IQ of people who have just at some point feel like they're just so annoyed with the system. It was not like this in the 90s. It wasn't like this previously, but as you see, there's going to be like a greater inflow of smart people, like high agency, intelligent people into these spheres, then there's going to be possible solutions. At least that's what I believe.
Hopefully. But as I always say, the economy works the way that it's a bit of a silly way of putting it, but I'd gladly live without avocados at my supermarket if it means that I don't have immigration.
Yeah, me too. I'll take the hit.
So,
we don't even have to choose on that one. I mean, a lot of these things could be fixed.
We have a lot of possibilities of being self-sufficient, and we have chosen not to.
We've chosen not to be. So I mean, from my perspective, we just Yeah, we could be self-sufficient. We could just, you could just have a party that comes into power, or some party that just takes over the government, and actually, okay, we're just going to be self-sufficient now, and we just take out all of these hate speech laws, all this nonsense. Like, we're just going to change these laws so we can have free association, and maybe it'll be easier then for people to.
I don't know if we live in a system that would allow that, but
it's going to be difficult. But I'm allowed to dream.
Yeah. I enjoy the dreaming as well. That being said, I will add that we talked a bit about it at the beginning, but there are moves you can pull off. We have to ride the tiger, so to speak, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't care about your surroundings. If the schools your kids go to, if the kindergarten your kids go to are doing this stuff, as Ludwig said, please try to organize something, try to fight back. If nothing else, for your own children, it's going to be easier if you don't have to deprogram them in 10 years.
Yes. I mean, you try to find these people, and you just go have a beer with them or something, and try to plan something. And you have to do it the same way that this gay lobby has done it, clandestine. It's like targeted attacks with propaganda. We're not going to sit with the free marketplace of ideas and discuss it. They're just going to be, you just attack them. You study them and you attack them. And if you are competent, if you have people who actually work together with a common vision, I think that can be done, at least on a local level.
Yeah,
you can create a little parasol to cover yourself from all of the shit that's being thrown at you.
Hopefully that's something that can be built over time with the basket weaving. I saw that the Scandinavian part of the basket weaving have grown a bit. I know the Norwegian one is slightly more popular, and there are some people talking about different organizations that already exist. And hopefully we'll be able to do things maybe in the context of the Longhouse.
It would be fun to
life at some point. That would be fun.
It would be fun to do something after a while there, and we'll see. And what I have,
we could do a Scandinavian event like the Brits and the Americans have been doing.
I saw that that actually was quite white pilling. What I heard about the what was that, the Arkansas or something? They were in Nashville.
I don't remember quite the details of where they were, but yeah.
Want to do questions now?
Yeah, can I go get some water real quick?
Yeah, go get some water.
Questions. If you have any more questions, post them in the chat. I've starred a couple of questions throughout the stream, and then we'll capture that.
Go get the water. I can see if I can read some comments. Seeing the start here. Nordanon says, I live up north, so your experience may be different. But a few years ago, there was basically no pride stuff in public. On the 17th of May, like 3 or 4 years ago, there was pride section in the parade. Yeah, if you're living up north, you're going to be sheltered from a lot of this stuff. I mean, Oslo, and I think Oslo, Bergen, and Trondheim, that are like the bigger cities and the student towns, that's going to be the epicenter of the pause. If you live a little bit away, you're going to be more sheltered. But make no mistake, I mean, they are coming for you. You're getting the you're getting the pause if you like it or not. Like they have this. Morgoth has this video where he's standing outside fishing and looking at these windmills, and he's just saying that they haven't forgotten about you. the diversity and the enrichment. I mean, it's all going to come soon. I watched a show with my wife. I mean, my wife sometimes watches these like mainstream shows like Nytt på Nytt, and they had a segment about that, about like these women who were working on these traditional like fisher boats up in the north, and they were it's such a hostile environment toward women. How come they hate women so much in the north? It's like, well, they haven't been paused. They haven't been paused yet. So they still have like real masculine. You can still go and have like a real masculine, workplace in the north. Like you sort of a very traditional. You work on a fishing boat and there's no women there, and you can have like an actual sort of brotherhood, tough, hierarchical, masculine culture. And the people in Oslo just can't stand that. Like they just can't wait to quash it. Let's see here. Vingle says, Off
Did you
topic.
talk about the North question from Nordanon?
Nordanon says, it's.
Oh, you can see the starred
I can see
questions.
the starting.
Uh-huh.
So, sorry, I did answer that one.
That's
So,
good.
see, Walrus off topic, but speaking of Max Manus, hat tip to at Lucky Pants. A stream about a Norwegian resistance is futile. It might be good, albeit potentially controversial. What do you think, Walrus?
He said in the future, not it's futile. Yeah, I mean that might be potentially spicy as well, considering how many commies were part of it. But yeah. The next one here. Nordanon asks if my wife works. The answer is yes, she works. But my line on this has always been that once the children arrive, that she will either not work or work as little as possible, or change to a job where she can work as little as possible. And she is sort of agreeing to that.
My wife works as well, but we're getting to the same situation now where she's moved down to part-time. And because there's sort of kids on the way, so there's it's unlikely that we're going to be able to then have the same work schedule. And of course, I mean, you could be based, and it's like, oh, I have the trad wife, and she's just going to be at home. But I mean, it's a lot easier to have the trad wife if there are other trad wives in your area. I mean, if you're just going to sit isolated and alone, knitting or whatever, it's not. I don't think it's very healthy.
It's a difficult, and I understand her situation, and I don't want to like lock her up, right? Because it's we live in a society. We have created a society in which it's not built for stay-at-home mothers. It's not a society that necessarily accepts that, and it's hard economically as well. So there has to be some sort of like transition period or some sort of leeway in how we do it. But that's always been my line, that once the children arrive, I want you to work as little as possible. Preferably not at all, but we'll see if that's possible to pull off in terms of social life.
Yes, I mean it is just difficult. Like I said, it's easier to be to be a stay-at-home mom if you live in like this American middle class suburban neighborhood, and like every mother is a stay-at-home mom and they go and do activities together. But the way that things are now, it's like everything is just happening in these institutions. And it does suck, but you have to kind of balance it out and bob and weave with it. It's really hard to, if you want to completely wash your hands off it. I know a family who does that, but they live like they have a living standard that is, what you'd expect if you just have to completely wash your hands off the system.
Yes. Lucky Pants says, to be honest, we should just move to a small village and take over, bring all our trad wives, and become strong power block in local politics. My wife joked about that when we talked about like organizing and whatever I'm doing online here, and she was like, yeah, in the future I suppose we'll have to move to the communion town with all your based internet friends, and I'll have to live with the other wives.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to magically solve all our problems, but it is a very appealing thing. I heard Academic Agent mention it's the same thing that I've thought, is that we should just go and take over an African country. I think that would be possible. I mean, if we just pull together the funds on Vips or something, it's like we have enough to buy like some AK-47s or something. We could just we have the IQ. We can just go take over some African nation. I mean, it seems to happen like every other month in some of these places.
Yeah, maybe.
So, I don't think the UN would like it. I think they might notice.
Yeah, I think so
might
too.
Get international
some guys would be mad.
It's like the Joker quote, the Africans are genociding each other all the time, but when white people do it, everybody loses their minds.
Yeah, right.
It's not a part of the plan, Batman.
Leo says, do not let your enemies propagandize and hurt your kids for 8 hours a day. Yeah, that's something that I'm very afraid of. I talked about that with my dad recently, because he's in the know of some of these things, but he's also at times locked in the boomer truth regime very much. But he also told me that it was something he struggled with, the idea that, you know, the school have the kids for the majority of the day, and then he has them, or then he has the kids for, or he had me for a couple hours before bed to try to, you know, make sure that they don't ruin me totally.
I do think it does help if you have like a heterosexual marriage with two parents who actually communicate.
Oh yeah,
I think that in
they've
itself is
been
strong
very
enough. It's like if you can just show your kids that, okay, you can have like a straight married couple who are happy. You know, that's
yeah.
possible.
I
Like, this is a future
always
you can
joked with
have.
my
Yeah.
always joked with my friends growing up that, you know, I'm one of those weirdos that had a family where everyone loved each other, and we're all having a good time, right?
Yes.
And that's certainly something that has, you know, course corrected me heavily, having a good role model in my own family.
Yes, I mean, they're gonna want to go back to that, right? I mean, that's where they feel safe, and that's what they want, and they realize that this kind of like career woman, girl boss, like chopping your dick off stuff, that's not gonna bring me like this trad family. At least
No.
that's what I believe.
Photosynthetic C commented, "This is just something I noticed. My icon is from Neverwinter Nights, old BioWare RPG D&D 3.5e. Are you sure it's not second edition or just third edition flat? I know I'm showing my nerd power level here, but maybe that's the old Baldur's Gate was second edition. I don't quite remember.
I was gonna play Neverwinter Nights, I didn't get around to it, but I hear good things.
It's well, the first one, I suppose, is very much a it's one of those charismatic old games that are like trying to simulate tabletop experiences. So it's more like a simulation than it is a game in the modern sense. So for better or for worse, I suppose. But it's been years since I have touched that game. You can pull off the stay-at-home mom thing. Just don't send your kids to kindergarten at all. Well, yeah, if possible. But we'll see if that's possible. Is there no Norwegian Oscar Wilde? Is the Friele creature really the most competent, accomplished token to pull out of the bag? Are you referring to the Norwegian of the century?
They should have some figurehead that is more better looking and
in that sense, right?
Probably more charismatic. I mean, you know,
I don't think they have
is,
that.
no, I don't think so either. I mean, they have
Not in
some of these
Norway.
people on the television, but they don't have that kind of deep charisma. It's like this very superficial,
Yeah,
queer eye for
like,
the straight guy stuff.
Yeah, it's queer eye levels of gays and sort of comedians and you know, that kind of people, but they're no explicitly gay like great man in Norway, I think.
Nope.
In the history.
But they might retcon that and say
maybe
Fridtjof Nansen was gay and Knut Hansen was gay, and every person on that list was apparently gay. They'll find a way to rewrite that for sure.
Theo was beating me at the nerd game here, especially when BioWare released the code from Hordes of the Underdark and the modding community started to release full patches. Okay. I'm going to take your word for it. Okay. I think or, you know, just written a book or done something non-sexual. I mean, there's probably someone, but they're not in the sort of top 10 category, I suppose.
This is a very interesting thing. It's also something I heard Academic Agent ask about on his Telegram. Is that if you've ever seen like a sort of African celebrity, one of these historical like black figures who's done anything that's not about them being black, like a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King, like they've just done something else that was just about something, some universal philosophy, or idea or project that's not about Black emancipation. I can't think of anyone. It's probably the same thing there. I can't think of a lot of
No, I suppose it's
icons.
you would have to go to like Thomas Sowell or something, but even he touches on these, like he probably touches on that too much for it to be like a viable candidate.
Yeah, okay, that's a good candidate actually. I'll stand corrected on that. Maybe he's a bit of an exception.
But even then, you know, it's in a sense he's a bit of a counter signaling to the Malcolm X types anyway. So he's working within the same sort of playing field.
Yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. You end up being put in this kind of Uncle Tom role.
Right.
I almost feel bad for him now. It's
Yeah.
hard to kind of be a figure from that background and not have everything you're doing be kind of absorbed into that same frame.
Alphabet soup will come for Knut Hamsun, just you wait. I actually doubt it. You know, the general consensus is mostly that he's been written off as a mid-century German, and then he went insane, and then he died. I don't see any. There's no ground to be gained there. If not, it's he had like 4 children or something, and was married for a very long time without any hint of him being gay, I think. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't imagine them doing that the first chance they get. They've not
I
been
think it's
that
more.
creative.
I think it's more like someone like Heyerdahl or Nansen.
Oh, yeah.
or like one of the explorers would be easier to paint.
I think so too. Yeah, he shared a tent with some guy. I think like Ulf Poulsen, they've already gone for him, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Egg B. Oh well. We're just about 3 hours here. I think it's time to end it for tonight.
It's time to wrap up. So yeah, thanks to the audience. At least it's been
and thank you
for a fun stream
for preparing all this. I really enjoyed the presentation, and it's very interesting to see how this this came to be. It didn't just magically pop out of nowhere.
No, but that's the frame that you get from all of these mainstream figures.
Yeah.
This came out of nowhere. Oh, where did this come from? Like we had the perfect 90s equality thing, and then this crazy stuff just, it just came out of nowhere. It absolutely did not come out of nowhere. Like it started as a conspiracy that's been like 70 years in the making. A lot of work, a lot of Machiavellianism, a lot of planning went into it. It's not an emergent phenomenon.
Yes. Roland Doggerland asks if there's such a thing as a Sami cheese. Yes. It's called coffee cheese, I think. Hang on, let me Google it.
I learned something new.
Cheese. Yeah, coffee cheese. I don't know if it's good. I've never tried it. It looks kind of like it might be I don't know. It seems to be something akin to mozzarella, but it gets like they heat it up into like pancake shapes, it seems. I've never had it, so I can't say if it's good. Stream on the Sami question when that might be a bit too spicy. I don't know if we'll ever do it. Maybe
That's going to be interesting because I know very little about it.
I know a little bit about it, but yeah, I would need to do more research, and I'm so sure we could get someone like maybe Burkharl or something. Leo, maybe.
I mean, just a shout out then. There's not that many. We have like 9 people watching. It seems like we have a regular crowd, and that's always cool. It's sort of like a cozy bar or something.
Yeah.
But if there are like new people watching, if anybody is interested in coming on and just like doing, if they want to do a lecture, or they have some topic they're passionate about, or interested in showing that it's like within the periphery of what we're talking about here, then you're all invited.
Yeah, just head over to the Matrix channel, or message me on Twitter or something like that if you're interested or have a topic that you're passionate about, and we'll probably be more than happy to have you on. We're all here to to learn and to form connections is I think the most important one, because then we can start to do things in the future.
Agreed.
Okay, and on that note, we'll end it for today. Thank you all for watching, and hope to see you here next time. Goodbye.